Chapter 559. The only connection between the Mayan mountain range and the three continents was the 100,000 mountain range, where demon beasts roamed freely. High-level demon beasts lived here all year round, and most of them were fourth-level demon beasts. Nascent soul stage cultivators could successfully cross over. The depths of the 100,000 mountain range was where countless high-level demon beasts gathered. There were 6th and 7th-level demon beasts here, and it had been a long time since a cultivator set foot here. But recently, the high-level demon beast gathering place was no longer peaceful. Many powerful demon beasts had no choice but to be cautious, because there were 3 uninvited guests here. Boom! A 10-meter-long, 6th-level, twin-headed crocodile lizard was ruthlessly smashed into the ground, smashing a hard granite and creating a large hole in the ground. Black blood slowly flowed on the ground, soaking a large area of soil. This one is braised. This one is braised. The twin-headed crocodile lizard has a bitter taste when braised. It's better to steam it. Behind the twin-headed crocodile lizard's corpse, Little Shuai and Long Tongue were skinning it. Little Shuai was desperately drilling into the twin-headed crocodile lizard's stomach, trying to find the demon spirit. Don't look for it. It's with me. Muyu held the fist-sized demon spirit and tossed it in his hand. A bloodthirsty coldness flashed through his eyes, but it disappeared in an instant. If the twin-headed crocodile lizard's demon spirit is cooked with the blood of a winged sparrow, it will taste like roast duck. Little Shuai jumped over and snatched the demon spirit from Muyu's hand. Then, he dragged out a meter-long winged sparrow from the grass. Sharp blades as thin as cicada's wings popped out of his little claws, and he began to cook for himself. Muyu sat cross-legged on a rock and began to cultivate his dust fall mantra. It had been a year since he left Clearwater City. In this year, he did not show his face in the cultivation world. Instead, he chose to cultivate in the Moyun mountain range, where demon beasts ran rampant. Now, Jining and Chunfeng's 4 disciples had their own paths to walk. Cultivation was the prerequisite for them to realize their beliefs. The immortal confinement prison in the Moyun mountain range had long been removed, and the spiritual energy in the 100,000 mountain range had begun to recover. The spiritual chi of the 3 continents was gradually transferred to the Moyun mountain range. This process was very slow, and Muyu felt that it would take a long time for the Moyun mountain range's spiritual chi to become less barren. However, he was in the periphery of the Moyun mountain range, close to the 3rd continent, so the spirit chi here was enough to support his cultivation. Muyu had once returned to Luochen Mountain, but Luochen Mountain had long been deserted. There was no news of his master, and Shu was nowhere to be found. He knew that he was very weak, so he could only continue to cultivate, wanting to raise his cultivation. When he reached the spirit-severing stage, the increase in his cultivation also began to slow down. In the past year, he had only reached the 7th layer of the spirit-severing stage. He continued to cultivate and did not slack off for even a moment because there were many things waiting for him to solve, and he could not afford to slack off. For the past year, he had been fighting with demonic beasts, and the demonic beasts he had killed were all much stronger than him. For some reason, he inexplicably liked the feeling of hunting demonic beasts. Every time he killed a demonic beast, he would always feel inexplicably carefree in his heart. The feeling of depriving life made him fascinated. Every time a demonic beast died in his hands, the death aura on Mu Ling's body would become more abundant, and the life aura would become less and less. Mu Ling had completely absorbed the death aura of the underworld grass, and the ugly holes on the sore body were also occupied by the black aura. It no longer felt exuberant and could no longer provide any life force to Muyu. Big earthworm, bring the pot over. I'll braise its thigh. Little Shuai was very busy. He would do anything to eat it. Before this guy came to the Moyun mountain range, he had brought the book Demonic Beast Nutrition and Diet Encyclopedia, which recorded all kinds of demonic beasts that could eat and how to make the best food. This book was simply Little Shuai's favorite. Usually, when he had nothing to do, he would flip through its recipes, and just looking at it made him drool. Every time he wanted to kill a demonic beast for his meal, it was decided by him. Muyu only followed his request to deal with the high-level demonic beasts. He was too lazy to deal with the rest of the low-level demonic beasts, and Little Shuai and Dragon Tongue would deal with them themselves. It had to be said that the ability of a foodie was terrifying. In order to be able to eat delicious food, Little Shuai had already thrown caution to the wind and memorized the entire thick recipe book. He could use the blood of various demonic beasts, grind their bones into powder, pickle their hearts, and some other messy methods to make seasoning. Muyu often gave him some vegetable oil and let him do it himself. The recipe says that if you compress the thigh meat of the dual-headed crocodile lizard to the extreme, the meat will be more chewy. Little Shuai dragged the thigh of the dual-headed crocodile lizard over. This thigh was 7 or 8 times bigger than its head, but in its hands, it was not strenuous at all. Compress? Use spiritual power? Dragon Tongue asked while swinging its tail. Yes, use spiritual power, but I can use spiritual power. The more compressed it is, the more delicious it will be. Then I feel that I can compress this thigh meat until its own mother won't be able to recognize it. Little Shuai said while rubbing its palms. Muyu laughed. Little Shuai sometimes spoke very straightforwardly. Little Shuai's hands began to surge with white spiritual power, and under its control, the spiritual power completely wrapped around the thigh of the dual-headed crocodile lizard. The spiritual power continued to shrink, and the whole thigh was slowly compressed. The gas in the flesh was unceremoniously squeezed out by Little Shuai. Little Shuai was very adept at controlling spiritual power, and there was nothing in the world more familiar with spiritual power than it. In order to achieve an even more delicious taste, it pressed harder and harder. Is it enough? If you continue to compress it, it won't feel like meat anymore. Dragon Tongue reminded. Little Shuai pressed for a moment before letting go. The thigh that was originally several times bigger than itself had been squashed to about the same size as its head. It said excitedly, "The recipe says that you can compress the meat until it's red. Now that I've pressed it until it's purple, it will definitely be more delicious. I just need to brush it with hot water." Little Shuai withdrew its spiritual power. The thigh meat of the dual-headed crocodile lizard did not swell up, but the smell of blood became stronger and stronger. Little Shuai set up a large pot, and the water inside was already boiling. Without hesitation, it put the compressed thigh meat into it. Boom! An explosion suddenly came from Little Shuai's pot, and the boiling water suddenly splashed everywhere. The entire iron pot was blown apart, and a large hole was blown into the ground. Little Shuai was the closest to the pot, and its whole body had been blown away by the powerful explosion, landing in the grass in the distance. Damn, little mouse, what exploded? Dragon Tongue puffed up its cheeks and blew on its scalded tail. Although its skin was very thick, it was still very uncomfortable to be scalded, and it was very angry because of this. What's wrong? Little Shuai asked you to make a meal, and you blew up the pot again. We only have 2 pots left. Muyu hurriedly ran over and picked up Xiao Shuai, who was dizzy from the explosion from the grass. Little Shuai's whole body was scalding hot. Muyu wrapped his hand with spiritual power, isolating it from the scalding hot water. He shook Little Shuai, and only then did it come back to its senses. It immediately scolded. What's going on? Why did the dual-headed crocodile lizard's thigh explode? I wanted to ask you the same thing. Did you compress its thigh to the point that its mother wouldn't recognize it? Or did you blow up the pot to the point that its mother wouldn't recognize it? Muyu asked helplessly. How would I know? Little Shuai's skin was thick, and it was not afraid of being scalded by the boiling water. It ran over and picked up the torn thigh of the dual-headed crocodile lizard. After carefully examining it, it revealed a bitter face. Really, I forgot that after the dual-headed crocodile lizard dies, its whole body still has demonic power. After the demonic power is compressed, it will suddenly explode when it encounters an external stimulus. Are you stupid? Every time I shoot out my dragon breath, I gather all the spiritual power in my body, compress it, and then shoot it out. After the spiritual power is compressed and then shot out, how can its power be underestimated? Dragon Vine swung its tail and became lively again. after the spiritual power is compressed and then shot out? Muyu was slightly surprised. He looked at the crater caused by the explosion of the dual-headed crocodile lizard's thigh. He didn't expect that even though the dual-headed crocodile lizard was already dead, its remaining demonic power could still be so destructive after being compressed. If he could also use an array to compress the spiritual power, then it would definitely be comparable to the damage of an exploding Dan. Little Shuai, do you think we can create an array to compress the spiritual power and then shoot it out? Muyu knew how to use an array to compress things, but because the compression speed was very slow, it was generally not used like this. That won't work, unless you have an organ like a big earthworm that farts from its mouth. Otherwise, you won't be able to compress spiritual power. Little Shuai shook its body, and the water droplets on its body were completely shaken off. Little Mouse, are you looking for a beating? What do you mean by an organ that farts from its mouth? That's called dragon spirit. Long Tongue said proudly. When Long Tongue fought with people, every time it spat out a powerful dragon breath from its mouth. The dragon breath relied on a special organ in its body, so it could easily compress spiritual power. However, the array itself was also formed by spiritual power, so it was unrealistic to use the array to compress spiritual power. Not compressing spiritual power. How about we compress thunder and lightning? What do you think? Muyu remembered Xiao Shuai's favorite mysterious heavenly thunderfall swordsmanship. The thunder and lightning created by the swordsmanship was the thunder and lightning stripped from air. It was a real existence, not an illusion created by spiritual power. Little Shuai's eyes lit up. Huh, in theory, it should be possible. Let's try it. I'll summon the thunder and lightning. Muyu, you try to use the array to compress the thunder and lightning. I say, are you guys still cooking or not? Can't you try it after eating? Long Tongue yawned. Big earthworm, why are you always thinking about eating? Can't you do anything other than eat? Little Shuai said righteously. Long Tongue rolled its eyes. It was usually Long Tongue who lectured Little Shuai, but Little Shuai didn't blush at all when he said it himself. Muyu and Little Shuai were very motivated. They had been researching all kinds of strange array techniques for the past year. Usually, they couldn't wait to experiment with any good ideas they came up with. This included combining all kinds of poisons and array techniques, as well as all kinds of colorless and tasteless traps. Deadwood Daddy was already used to these things, and Muyu was just innovating on the original foundation. Muyu was working so hard to research all kinds of array techniques, mainly to make himself stronger. Array formations were his strongest trump card. However, many of the array formations were used for protection or defense. Most of the array formations were offensive array formations that Muyu didn't care about. So far, Muyu and Lil Shuai had experimented with all kinds of array techniques. Many array techniques weren't as practical for Muyu as the 9 heavenly sword guides, so he had always wanted to apply other array techniques to the 9 heavenly sword guides. Just like when he used the shadow sword to cause the core to explode in the unification stage. The sword intent of the shadow sword cut off the life force he consumed. The green wind heart linking array appeared under Muyu's feet and enveloped Little Shuai. Blue electric sparks suddenly surged from Little Shuai's body, making all its hair stand on end. It put one hand on its waist and pointed to the sky with the other. The blue sword soared into the sky with its little hand as the sword hilt. The blue sword chi streaked through the air and was firmly restrained by Muyu. Countless black and white inscriptions surged from his hand. These inscriptions instantly merged with the blue sword chi and compressed it. The blue sword that was originally 3 feet long was forcibly compressed to 3 feet under the pressure of Muyu's inscriptions. The entire sword was like a sparkling and translucent blue crystal, gorgeous and colorful. Muyu carefully withdrew his spiritual power. At the same time, he was ready to run at any time because he had just experienced the power of the explosion when the demonic power was compressed. However, when Muyu withdrew his spiritual power, the blue crystal-like sword's shadow suddenly shattered. It didn't explode as expected, but directly turned into blue fragments and dissipated in the air. It didn't succeed. Huh? What went wrong? Muyu looked at the disappearing sword shadow in confusion. Dragonvine shook its head and said, "You can't do this. Usually, when I compress my spiritual power, it is very violent. It is always surging, so it is very easy to explode with great power. But after you turn the lightning into a sword shadow, it is equivalent to the lightning forming a stable sword. Even if a stable sword is compressed, there is no violent spiritual power flowing in its body, so it will not explode instantly." Muyu realized that Dragonvine's words made sense. When the spiritual power was violent, it was the most powerful. However, Muyu used the formation pattern to compress the blue sword shadow, stabilizing the violent spiritual power, so it really couldn't explode. That is to say, when the heavenly lightning sword is cut into pieces, it will become unstable in an instant. I just need to seize the moment when the sword becomes violent and compress the broken sword shadow, right? Muyu nodded thoughtfully. But the lightning sword I created is so powerful and domineering. It would be bad if it was destroyed. Little Shuai muttered unhappily. TSK, forget about it. How can your lightning be as masculine as my Dragonvine howls the sky? Dragonvine curled its lips. Both of them felt that their swordsmanship was great, and neither of them was convinced of the other's superiority. Then Dragonvine, come and break little Shuai's lightning sword. Let's try again. Muyu said. Dragonvine glanced at little Shuai. The little mouse will definitely not let me break its sword. Little Shuai, lower the lightning sword's aura, understand? Muyu said helplessly. Chapter 560. The blue greatsword once again soared into the sky from Little Commander's hand. Lightning was drawn over from the sky and flashed from time to time. The Dragonvine also landed in the wind heart-linking array. The shadow swords appeared and performed the fifth move of the 9 heaven sword guides. The monstrous sword intent transformed into a mighty and domineering dragon, which was swallowed by the Dragonvine. The Dragonvine's entire body also emitted a sharp sword aura. Little rat die. The Dragonvine laughed loudly. A dragon's breath was spat out from its mouth. It instantly transformed into 4 swords and slashed towards Little Commander's Thunder Sword. Little Commander's Thunder Sword was instantly split into 5 sections by the Dragonvine. Every section of the sword rolled out. The violent power of lightning was surging and was about to collapse and dissipate. However, the array pattern in Muyu's hand had already moved forward. Black and white inscriptions floated out and instantly enveloped the 5 sections of the sword. The powerful array pattern kept squeezing the 5 balls of lightning. The lightning was being compressed and wanted to struggle out. Unfortunately, it was unable to rush out of the array pattern's encirclement. The 5 balls of lightning in Muyu's hand had already been compressed to the size of a pea. His entire body was emitting a terrifying tearing force as it trembled slightly. Is it done? Quickly give me one. Little Commander shouted. Why should I give it to you? Don't tell me you want to eat this too? The Dragonvine asked. Muyu's forehead was sweating. He realized that it was getting more and more strenuous for him to control the 5 balls of lightning. The array pattern seemed to be unable to suppress them any longer. Without hesitation, he threw one of the balls of lightning towards Little Commander. Little Commander, catch! Little Commander excitedly rushed over and hugged the ball of lightning. He revealed a malicious smile. I'm not going to eat this. I'm going to use it to electrocute the big earthworm. F***CK. Little rat, you are abusing your position to take revenge. The Dragonvine shouted angrily and turned to escape. No matter what it was afraid of the baptism of lightning. Being electrocuted was no joke. However, before Little Commander could throw it out, the ball of lightning in his hand suddenly broke free from the array pattern and exploded in Little Commander's hand. F***CKU. Little Handsome let out a blood-curdling scream, and a blue explosion spread out with Little Handsome as the center. Terrifying electric sparks burst out in all directions, destroying all the surrounding trees and creating a 50-meter deep crater in the ground. Bang! A black shadow fell straight into the pit from the air, and there was no movement for a long time. The array pattern in Mu Yu's hand could no longer be maintained. The lightning explosion in Xiao Shuai's hand was like a fuse, causing the lightning power in his hand to explode as well. Fortunately, he had the teleportation ability of the Big Dipper constellation formation. In the blink of an eye, he had escaped far away. However, because the explosion was too close to Xiao Shuai, the 4 lightning bolts exploded above Xiao Shuai and struck Xiao Shuai again. Mu Yu, I'll kill you. Xiao Shuai's pitiful voice came from the bottom of the crater. After the explosion, it flew out of the crater in a daze. Its fur was charred black from the electricity, and only a pair of blue eyes could be seen moving in a daze. Mu Yu was a little embarrassed as he ran far away to fetch a basin of water with a piece of wood. I suppressed it too much. I also thought that the longer it was suppressed, the more powerful it would be. Of course, nothing would happen to Little Commander. When it first hatched, the lightning it encountered was even worse than this. Mu Yu grabbed Little Commander's tail and threw it directly into the water to rinse it. Long Tongue was laughing so hard that she was out of breath. "Huh, little mouse, this will be called 5-blow thunderstruck from now on." Dragon Tongue rolled on the ground laughing. Little Commander swayed its body and suddenly pounced on Dragon Tongue, biting Dragon Tongue. F***CK. It was Mu Yu who blasted you. Why did you bite me? Dragon Tongue cried out in pain. Little Commander's teeth were sharp, and it was really painful to be bitten by him. Yes, and Mu Yu. Little Commander pounced on Mu Yu again and bit Mu Yu's finger. I really didn't do it on purpose. Mu Yu couldn't stand the pain and quickly shook his hand. This fellow ate every day, and there was nothing that it couldn't bite. Its teeth were really no joke. After shaking for a long time, it finally shook Little Commander off. Let's try again. This time, I promise I won't suppress it too much. I'll try my best to make sure it's within the range that I can bear. Okay, Mu Yu said helplessly. Little Commander cursed for a long time, cursing all kinds of weird profanities. In the end, it realized that it was hungry. It snorted fiercely and went to cook. Big earthworm, there are no more bamboo shoots. Go find some. I want someone younger, not too old. Little Shuai shouted. Can't we just get Mu Yu to make one with Mu Ling? Dragon Tongue occasionally tasted Little Commander's cooking. It really had to say that Little Commander's talent in cooking was top-notch. Little Commander's cooking skills were recognized by Dragon Tongue. Mu Yu felt that it was a pity that he didn't let Little Commander learn how to cook when they were at Luochen Mountain. If Little Commander had learned how to cook, they wouldn't have to eat and choose painful dishes every day. No, the vegetables made with Mu Ling aren't tasty. They're cold, lifeless, and tasteless. Little Commander had already used his spiritual energy to ignite the Pill Firestone. The Pill Firestone emitted flames, and he used his spiritual energy to float the iron pot on top of the flames. Dragon Tongue shook its head and reluctantly went into the forest. The dragon vine was a plant, and it had an affinity with other plants, so it was not a problem for it to find a vegetable. Mu Yu thought that he must find a chance to perfect this formation next time, provided that Little Commander was willing to cooperate. Now that he had completely mastered the Luo Chen mantra, he could now split the Shadow Sword into 9 swords. Combined with the Sky Sword 9 guiding formation, he felt that he could even fight against people in the 9th layer of the Spirit Severing stage. But the Triple Palace was still like a mountain pressing down on his heart, so he couldn't slack off. The jade pendant in Mu Yu's hand flickered gently. He poured his spiritual energy into the jade pendant and found Deadwood Daddy in the spirit anchoring formation. The crack on Deadwood Daddy's chest was still shocking. Mu Yu still hadn't found any way to repair Deadwood Daddy's soul. He often stared at Deadwood Daddy's soul in a daze, and he always felt powerless. He couldn't save Deadwood Daddy when something happened to him, and he couldn't help his master when something happened to him. The 2 people he respected the most had become like this because of the Triple Palace, and he didn't know how to solve it. He didn't know what had happened in the Triple Continent in the past year, and he didn't want to ask how many self-cultivators Xiongnan had controlled. He didn't know who had become a dark horse on the Supreme Immortal Leaderboard and who had taken first place. He just wanted to quietly improve his cultivation, unlock the ninth heaven-sealing demon formation, resurrect Deadwood Daddy, take revenge on the Triple Palace, and find a way to save his master. That was all. Why hasn't the big earthworm come back yet? I remember there's a bamboo forest 3 miles away from here. Is it so troublesome to find a bamboo shoot? Xiao Shuai was holding a large spoon that was even longer than his entire body in midair, stirring the soup nonstop. At this moment, a fragrant smell came from the pot. Little Commander had sprinkled a lot of salt. The salt was extracted from the blood of the short-horned hippopotamus in the salty wetland, so it was full of everything. Muyu also felt a little strange. An hour had passed, and Little Commander's braised crocodile was already out of the pot. The bamboo shoot was supposed to be a side dish to make the dish taste better, but the dragon vine hadn't come back yet, so it didn't need to be a side dish. Did something happen to it? Muyu frowned. The dragon vine was usually lazy. It wagged its tail when something happened, took a nap when nothing happened, and quarreled with Little Commander when it was bored. Even if it was asked to go out to find vegetables, it would be quick, but it seemed to be a little slow today. It shouldn't be, right? The big earthworm's fake power can intimidate many monsters. Nothing will happen. Little Commander wagged its tail and fanned the heat from the braised crocodile on the plate. At the same time, it had already picked up a piece of meat and started chewing. The dragon vine was a special monster. It was a plant that had been transformed for 10,000 years. After transforming into a dragon, its dragon power was very real, and many monsters were afraid of it. Although it was only at the out-of-body stage, it had been following Muyu every day. Under the influence of Muyu's would attribute spiritual power, it had become more and more powerful. In this mountain range, even if it encountered a monster that it couldn't defeat, it was more than enough to escape. Wait a minute, let me see where it is. Muyu touched the grass under his feet. The roots of the plants on the ground were intertwined, connecting the trees. Every tree seemed to be alive. The plants within a radius of 5 miles were like his eyes, presenting the surrounding scene in front of him. Soon, Muyu found the bamboo forest 3 miles away, but Muyu didn't see the shadow of the dragon vine. This was very strange because he saw a lot of bamboo shoots in the bamboo forest, but if the dragon vine didn't come here to pick the bamboo shoots, then where did it go? Muyu expanded his perception of the plants and suddenly extended the detection ability of the plants to 10 miles away. Then, his heart jumped because he found a place surrounded by a layer of black aura, and all the plants had withered and died. Ghost Chi. Muyu was very familiar with this aura. He definitely wouldn't mistake the gloomy aura of the people from the Gate of Hell. This ghost Chi enveloped all the trees on the hillside, forming a vacuum. It was barren, and not even a blade of grass grew. Muyu controlled the roots of the plants to crawl through the ground, but he didn't expect that the depths of the ground were also filled with ghost Chi. In an instant, the plants that Muyu controlled were infected. Muyu frowned slightly. These plants could only accept his consciousness to grow, and they didn't have any special effects, so they couldn't resist the cold ghost Chi. At this moment, 2 people from the Gate of Hell suddenly appeared in the vision of the plants that Muyu controlled. Why did you summon us here? One of the people from the Gate of Hell was shrouded in black aura. The people from the Gate of Hell spoke in a cold manner, which made people feel disgusted. We caught a dragonized dragon vine, but it's too powerful, and it injured all of us. We temporarily trapped it, and we need you to help. The person from the Gate of Hell who spoke was only at the out-of-body stage. Dragonized dragon vine? Are you sure? The person who replied was a severed soul stage person from the Gate of Hell. Judging from a voice, it was a woman. Her body was shrouded in dark red ghost Chi, and Muyu felt that this voice was somewhat familiar. He suddenly remembered who this woman was. Back in the second heaven, this woman was with Gue Xianyue, and she seemed to be called Gue Hongyu. But why did the people from the Gate of Hell come to Moyan Mountain Range? Little Handsome, stop eating. The dragonized dragon vine was captured by the people from the Gate of Hell. Muyu opened his eyes, and his face darkened. Little Handsome spat out half of the meat in his mouth. What? The people from the Gate of Hell dared to capture a big earthworm? Damn it. I hate the Japanese the most. Go beat him up. Chapter 561. The gloomy ghost Chi made the surrounding trees wither. The dragon vine stared angrily at the boundary formed by ghost Chi in front of it, but it still couldn't break out. The ghost Chi was very strange. Every time the dragon vine hit it, it would be fiercely bounced away. At the same time, its body would feel very uncomfortable. The dragon vine just went there to pick the bamboo shoots. It didn't take long, but when it was about to leave, it suddenly found traces of people from the gate of hell. It was very curious. It didn't understand why people from the gate of hell would come here. In order to find out, it secretly followed them. Unexpectedly, it was discovered by people from the gate of hell. The cultivation of these people from the gate of hell was not high. They were no match for the dragon vine, but they used very powerful ghost chi to trap it. It had been calling for Muyu, but the ghost chi covered its breath and voice. Muyu didn't hear it at all. When the dragon vine was thinking about how to break out, the ghost chi suddenly rippled. Then a person surrounded by red mist suddenly walked in from outside. When it saw the cultivation of the spirit severing stage, it suddenly became nervous. It's really the dragon vine that has turned into a dragon? It's incredible. The red mist on Gue Hongyu's body dissipated, revealing her enchanting body. Her red eyes looked at the dragon vine with a surprised expression. The dragon vine is a precious material used to make the life-prolonging pill. A 10,000-year-old dragon vine can also heal wounds to the soul. With this dragon vine, our goal will be even more assured. A man beside Gue Hongyu was also very surprised. Gue Shuesong, go around and check the situation. Send someone to ask Shura Ghost to come here. I think something is wrong. Gue Hongyu seemed to think of something and ordered. Gue Shuesong was only at the out-of-body stage. He didn't understand and asked, something is wrong? Can't senior sister take down this dragon vine with her cultivation? Why bother Shura Ghost? Gue Hongyu said, the dragon vine that has turned into a dragon is rare in the world. It won't be seen for thousands of years. It only appeared once in the cultivation world. At that time, the dragon vine followed Muyu. I don't know if this dragon vine has anything to do with him, but if he's nearby, we have to be careful. When Gue Shuesong heard the name Muyu, his face slightly changed, but he quickly recovered. Senior sister, we don't need to worry about that Muyu, right? After all, we didn't come to the Moyen Mountain Range for him, but for... Shut up and go do it. Gue Hongyu glanced at Gue Shuesong and coldly shouted. Gue Shuesong shuddered and quickly retreated. Only the three nascent soul stage disciples of the Gate of Hell and Gue Hongyu were left. Roar! Dragon Tung roared and suddenly pounced at Gue Hongyu. Gue Hongyu's body emitted countless gloomy red mists, which were like maggots attached to bones, making people shudder. The red mist transformed into slender, ghostly hands, instantly grabbing the dragon vine tightly. Dragon transforming dragon vine, you only have the strength of a rank 5 demonic beast. You'd better surrender obediently. Gue Hongyu smiled slightly and floated to the side of dragon vine like a ghost. She stretched out her slender fingers and touched dragon vine. Dragon vine struggled furiously, trying to break free from Gue Hongyu's ghostly hands. However, Gue Hongyu's cultivation was at the spirit severing stage, which was not something dragon vine could compete with. Damn it! How dare you catch my big earthworm? You're courting death. Xiao Shuai's voice came from the dense ghost mist. At the same time, the surrounding ghost mist seemed to melt and suddenly disappeared. A shadow soared with monstrous sword chi slashed straight at Gue Hongyu. Gue Hongyu's face changed dramatically, and countless red mists emerged from her body. Resentful souls wailed and floated out of the red mists, facing Muyu's fierce sword chi. However, the sword chi instantly dispersed and transformed into 9 swords. 9 sword shadows with heaven shaking might descended from all directions and killed all the vengeful spirits. Gue Hongyu's red mist could not block Muyu's sword chi at all. She snorted coldly, and a red ghost shadow floated out of her body. It was Gue Hongyu's twin. They spread out and surrounded Muyu to confront her. It's really you, Muyu. Gui Hongyu's face was as cold as frost. When she was in the second heaven, she had already seen the power of Mu Yu's sword chi. Mu Yu's sword moves were endless, which was the nemesis of the Gate of Hell. Release Dragon Vine. Mu Yu said coldly. Dragon Vine was still caught by Gui Hongyu's red ghost claws, and the other 3 people from the Gate of Hell were guarding Dragon Vine. Last time, you ruined our plans at the second layer of heaven. We have always remembered this matter. Since you have walked right into our trap today, then don't blame me for being impolite. Gui Hongyu and her twin's hands surged with a demonic red glow. Mu Yu wrapped the shadow clone sword with black and white spirit energy and looked at Gui Hongyu coldly. He had never liked the people from the Gate of Hell who killed innocent people. Previously, the people from the Gate of Hell tried to sneak into the Moyun mountain range to capture the millions of people there. Now that the immortal confinement prison in the Moyun mountain range had been broken, were they planning to directly destroy the people in the Moyun mountain range? Gui Xianyue died in my hands. What right do you have to be impolite to me? The formation under Mu Yu's feet surged, and a black and white 8 trigrams formation spread out. The powerful formation ripples spread out with him as the center, and Little Shuai had already fallen into the 8 trigrams formation. Little Shuai, I will deal with this female ghost. You go and save Dragon Vine. The wind heart-linking formation under Mu Yu's feet was already spinning rapidly. When Gui Hongyu heard Mu Yu mention the word female ghost, she was a little angry. Little Shuai put one paw on his waist, and the other paw pointed at the sky. He shouted in a childish voice, Little Shuai's mysterious lightning fall. The black and white formation ripples around Little Shuai's body quickly turned into blue formation ripples. Blue electric arcs flashed and wrapped around Little Shuai's body. The shadow clone, sword energy was instantly drawn into his body. Terrifying lightning shot out from his body and fell towards the people from the Gate of Hell. The lightning carried the might of the heavens and instantly extinguished the ghost energy of the 3 people from the Gate of Hell. Terrifying sparks flashed, and the 3 people from the Gate of Hell were sent flying. However, as they were sent flying, a gray bottle appeared in Gui Hongyu's hand. Gray mist sprayed out and landed on Dragon Vine's body. The gray mist was like ice crystals that froze Dragon Vine. Then, with a wave of Gui Hongyu's hand, Dragon Vine gradually shrank and was put into the gray bottle. You're courting death. The formation ripples under Mu Yu's feet flashed, and the Big Dipper constellation formation disappeared with him. When he reappeared, he was already behind Gui Hongyu. He waved his hand and pulled out the shadow clone sword from the void and stabbed towards Gui Hongyu. Gui Hongyu's body surged with a demonic red mist again and turned into a hard barrier. She wanted to block Mu Yu's shadow clone sword. However, she still underestimated the power of Mu Yu's shadow clone sword. The shadow clone sword was like a hot knife through butter. It left a deep sword wound on Gui Hongyu's back. Gui Hongyu snorted and her expression changed drastically. She turned her head and saw that Mu Yu's sword chi carried a strange spiritual power. It was sucking the red mist from her body and hindering the healing of the spiritual power in her body. Damn it! Gui Hongyu knew that she had been careless. The strength of a true God's disciple was not something she could compete with. She formed a seal in her hand, and the twins rushed towards her and merged with her. At the same time, Mu Yu's strange spirit energy was repelled. Gui Hongyu's toes tapped lightly on the stone. Her whole body had already pulled away from Mu Yu. Mu Yu followed her like a shadow and slashed down with his sword again, almost cutting off her entire arm. Hand over the Dragon Vine. Mu Yu never showed mercy to the people from the Gate of Hell. Every person from the Gate of Hell had their hands stained with blood. They killed countless people and created a lot of soul energy for the Triple Palace. This kind of person deserved to die. Gui Hongyu clenched her teeth. She knew that she was not Mu Yu's opponent. She made a prompt decision and turned to leave. Countless red mist exploded, and resentful spirits shot out in all directions, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they rushed over. However, they were all sucked into Mu Yu's with spirit sword. Gui Hongyu had already borrowed the cover of the red mist to break through the void and escape. The spirit severing stage knew how to shrink the ground into an inch and step into the void. The cultivation method of the people from the Gate of Hell was even stranger. They could sneak without leaving a trace. However, stepping into the void was actually a way of walking when the speed reached a certain limit and caused the surrounding space to distort. This way of walking consumed a lot of spirit energy, especially not as fast as the teleportation of the Heavenly Dipper constellation formation. Want to escape? Get back here. Muyu was also a spirit-severing stage cultivator. He knew the characteristics of void walking. In front of his Heavenly Dipper constellation formation, Gui Hongyu couldn't escape at all. Muyu's shadow sword flew out of his hand, and a sharp cold light flashed in the air. It instantly merged into the void. At the same time, his whole person suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already at the top of a tree and kicked in the direction he came from. Bang! Gui Hongyu let out a muffled groan and fell from the sky in a sorry state. She crashed heavily into a tree and landed on the ground. Xiao Shuai's lightning had already turned the 3 people from the Gate of Hell into ashes. His body lit up with lightning again and aimed at Gui Hongyu. Muyu stretched out his hand and pulled out the shadow sword again. The shadow sword carried a murderous aura and fell towards Gui Hongyu. Ding! With a light sound, a scarlet sickle suddenly appeared from the void and blocked in front of Gui Hongyu, repelling Muyu's shadow sword. TSK, Muyu, I've heard a lot about you. A cold young man fell from the sky and held the long scarlet sickle in one hand. Gui, Shua, I caught the dragon vine that turned into a dragon. I must immediately hand it over to the spirit venerable. Gui Hongyu climbed up from the ground in a sorry state. Dragon vine that turned into a dragon? That's really good stuff. Hongyu, leave this to me. You go first. Gui Shiluo's 9th heavenly layer cultivation was fully revealed. His face was sickly pale, but he stuck out his scarlet tongue and licked his lips. Gui Hongyu didn't say anything and turned to leave here. Don't go, Muyu shouted angrily. His body disappeared again, and he slashed at Gui Hongyu. But Gui Shiluo's speed was not slow. He instantly blocked Muyu and forced Muyu to retreat. Chapter 562. Muyu was infuriated. Every time he met someone from the Gate of Hell, nothing good would come out of it. This time, they actually kidnapped the dragon vine. They were simply courting death. Little Shuai, follow me, Muyu shouted in a low voice. Got it. Little Shuai's body turned into a shadow and instantly disappeared into the forest. Azura Gay only glanced at Little Shuai indifferently. He didn't put Little Shuai in his eyes. Obviously, he didn't think that a little spirit beast could do anything. The scarlet scythe in his hand was suffused with a demonic red glow. His entire body was filled with a thick ghost fog. Countless resentful spirits struggled to escape from the ghost fog, but the ghost fog seemed to have an invisible tearing force that firmly restrained these resentful spirits. I heard that Gui Xianyue died in your hands. Azura Gay narrowed his eyes. When Gui Xianyue was killed by Mu Yu in the second heaven, this incident caused Mu Yu to be spat on by self-cultivators for a long time. You will see Gui Xianyue very soon, Mu Yu said in a deep voice. He had never been lenient when killing people from the Gate of Hell. His body flashed and merged into the void. The shadow clone sword slashed down with a sharp sword chi. Is that so? You are wrong. I'm not a piece of trash like Gui Xianyue. Azura Gui pushed aside back and blocked the shadow clone sword. The strange ghost fog followed Mu Yu's shadow clone sword and swept upwards, wanting to invade Mu Yu's body. However, Mu Yu only shook his body slightly, and all the ghost fog turned into nothingness. 8 immortal demons. Azura Gui sneered. 18 soul chains jumped out from his body. The sound of metal clashing could be heard. Each soul chain locked a black skeleton in front. Among them, 4 of the skeletons were humanoid, while the other 4 were huge demon beast skeletons. Muyu carefully inspected the 4 demonic beast skeletons, and his brows raised. He recognized these 4 demonic beast skeletons, and they were respectively the 9-tailed demon python, blood-field wolf, azure flame scorpion, and black tortoise fleeing bear. These 4 monster beasts were all rank 6 monster beasts. When they were alive, they were very powerful, comparable to the spirit severing stage. Muyu had also encountered them here, but he didn't expect that they were refined into skeletal puppets by Guei Shura. The remaining 4 skeletons were also at the spirit severing stage. This Shura ghost had killed 4 spirit severing stage cultivators and turned them into his killing tools. This method was truly vicious. The 8 skeletons rushed towards Muyu from all directions. Their sharp bone spurs were trembling in the air as they whistled through the air. Muyu's shadow sword transformed into 9 swords, and each sword performed the 9 heavenly sword guides. A mysterious formation pattern appeared in the air, and all the shadow swords suddenly merged into the void. Muyu's figure quickly turned, and the 9 figures followed the shadow swords and disappeared into the void. Violent sword chi swept out. Each of the shadow swords carried the sword style of a 9-guided heavenly sword as they blasted towards the 8 skeletons. The swift and fierce sword chi instantly twisted the 8 skeletons into bone fragments. Muyu's main body held the shadow sword, and all the formation patterns were integrated into one and blasted towards Azura Guei. Bang! Azura Ghost unhurriedly raised his scythe, once again blocking Muyu's shadow sword, and his figure retreated. The 9 heavenly sword guides is indeed worthy of its reputation. Unfortunately, you can't kill my 8 demonic beasts. Azura Guei laughed cruelly, and then the Ean's soul chains trembled again. All the skeletons that were beaten into bone fragments by Muyu regrouped, and once again surrounded Muyu in the middle. The sword chi in Muyu's hand swept out again, and shattered the 8 demonic beast skeletons. However, not long after, these skeletons automatically returned to their original position, and their power was getting stronger and stronger. Can't kill them. Muyu was most annoyed by those demonic arts from the Gate of Hell. They were troublesome and disgusting. However, he was the best at dealing with these kinds of things. When he was at Sand Eagle Royal City, he could even deal with the Ean corpse formation, so why would he be afraid of these skeletons? Is this all the true God's disciple can do? Azura Guei sneered. Do all bad people say these kinds of things? Muyu didn't understand why every guy who wanted to find trouble with him always liked to provoke him. What was the benefit of showing off their superiority in front of him? Every time, they would say, "Is this all you can do? Are you crazy? Do they have to be taught a lesson to be happy?" In fact, most self-cultivators attacked Muyu mainly because Muyu was the true God's disciple. Everyone wanted to defeat the true God's disciple to prove themselves. Unfortunately, they were too arrogant. Muyu was a variable in the world of self-cultivators, so how could he be killed so easily? Black and white runes appeared under his feet, and Mu Ling's sword instantly turned into branches that filled the sky. The black branches grew tender green leaves, and the veins of these leaves had turned white. The branches were like long snakes that coiled around each skeleton, and for a moment, all the skeletons were tightly wrapped. Azura Guei didn't even bother to resist these branches. Do you think you can destroy my 8 demonic beasts with just your formation? Heh, you'll understand. Muyu calmly looked at Azura Guei. The deep and pure death energy on the branches suddenly bloomed and invaded the skeletons. The skeletons were instantly controlled by the death energy on Mu Ling's body and turned to face Azura Guei. Azura Guei's face changed. He twitched the Ean soul chain, trying to control the 8 skeletons, but he was shocked to find that his skeletons didn't listen to him. The death energy on the 8 skeletons was even stronger than his ghost energy, which made his heart tremble. How is this possible? Azura Guei's face sank. However, Muyu's branches had already rolled towards Azura Guei along the Ean soul chain, and their speed was extremely fast. Now, his cultivation was much stronger than a year ago. How could a small character like Azura Guei compare to him? Muyu didn't mind helping a guy who wanted to die. Azura Gue was shocked. He raised a red scythe in his hand and cut off his 8 soul chains. Countless ghost fog gushed out and blocked in front of him, trying to erode these branches rushing over. From Azura Gue's point of view, anything that was full of life would definitely become lifeless after being infected by his ghost chi. However, the strangeness of these branches was far beyond his imagination. His ghost chi was actually unable to stop the branches from spreading. Instead, it emitted an even more terrifying death chi, which completely devoured his ghost chi. What kind of formation is this? Azura Gue was shocked and angry. He had already thought of retreating, so he didn't hesitate anymore. With a tap of his foot, he turned around and merged into the void, wanting to leave this place. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? You haven't learned from me yet. Muyu coldly shouted, and his hands formed several formation patterns. Countless formation patterns rushed out, and black and white inscriptions instantly covered the entire area. The inscriptions shook slightly, and Azura Gue's figure was suddenly shaken out of the void. 9-9-1. The 9th move of Luo Chan's swordsmanship. 9-9-1. All things return to origin, great Tao to simplicity. 9 swords rushed into the sky, and suddenly lightning flashed and thunder roared between heaven and earth. 9 white dragons surged in the clouds, and a majestic aura shrouded everything. The demon beasts within 100 miles all prostrated themselves on the ground, and the mighty dragon aura suppressed them so much that they didn't dare to breathe. The violent aura covered the sky and the earth, sweeping away all the resentful spirits. The 9 sword shadows suddenly gradually formed a majestic heavenly sword in the air. The 100-jong heavenly sword was solemn and dignified. It was simple and unadorned as it pierced towards Azura Ghost. That simple sword strike was very ordinary. There was nothing fancy about it. However, Azura Gue was shocked to find that his aura was locked by this sword, and he couldn't move at all. The terrifying sword energy pierced through Azura Gue's shoulder, firmly nailing him to the formation pattern in midair. This was already Muyu being merciful, because he wanted to find out why the people of the Gate of Hell came to Moyun Mountain Range this time. Damn it! Azura Gue roared, and the resentful spirits on his body rushed towards Muyu. He raised his sword and cut his own shoulder, breaking free from Muyu's shadow swords, and quickly retreated. However, a golden light suddenly lit up around him and fiercely bounced him back. You want to leave after showing off? Did you ask me for permission? Muyu's fingers moved, and an 8 trigrams formation instantly appeared above Azura Gue's head. Before Azura Gue could react, the 8 trigrams formation had already merged into Azura Gue's body. Then, Azura Gue's eyes began to slacken, and he no longer struggled. Muyu was prepared to use the Divine Soul Formation at any time. The Divine Soul Formation's range of effect was limited, and it wasn't as terrifying as Xiang Nan's Sovereign Consciousness, which could control people everywhere. However, this method was still enough to deal with Azura Gue. Azura Gue's cultivation was higher than Muyu's, and Muyu could barely control him with the chaotic yin and yang. However, without the help of the Formation Hall, he couldn't control him for long. He had to get information from Azura Gue as soon as possible. What are you people of the Gate of Hell doing in Moyun Mountain Range? Do you want to kill the 1,000,000 people in Moyun Mountain Range? Muyu asked. We're going to Ghost Island. Azura Gue replied expressionlessly. Ghost Island? Muyu frowned. Back then in Moyun Mountain Range, Gue Xuanyue's father, Perfected Jihua, had once controlled a person, and that person was called Duke Red Dragon. At that time, Duke Red Dragon had said that there was a sea to the east of Moyun Mountain Range. At that time, he had found an ancient tablet that recorded the legend of Ghost Island. According to Duke Red Dragon, Ghost Island was a place left behind after the war between the ancient human race and the demon race. It was mysterious and unfathomable, and couldn't be found without special methods. At that time, Gue Xianyue had said that a mortal confinement prison prohibited cultivators above the nascent soul stage from entering. He came to find Feng Haochen to remove this restriction and let the people of the Gate of Hell go to Ghost Island. However, in the end, the plan of the Gate of Hell was disrupted by Mu Yu, who had lost control. Immortal Confinement Prison was removed a year ago, and you are only taking action now. Mu Yu didn't believe that the people of the Gate of Hell were so ill-informed that they only found out that Immortal Confinement Prison in Mayun Mountain Range had disappeared. We have already sent a group of people there, but the danger of Ghost Island is far beyond our imagination. We have already lost a group of people, so this time we specially made full preparations. Moreover, the Ghost Venerable will be going there personally. Azura Gue said, "Who is the Ghost Venerable? What is his cultivation level?" This wasn't the first time Mu Yu heard the term Ghost Venerable. He had heard it from Gue Xianyue several times. The Ghost Venerable is the protector of the Gate of Hell. He has a Tribulation Passing Stage cultivation level. Tribulation Passing Stage Protector? Mu Yu was slightly shocked. The protectors of the Gate of Hell were all Tribulation Passing Stage cultivators. Pill Cauldron Sect and the 8 sects were on the same level. The sect master of Pill Cauldron Sect, Taoist Yundan, was only at the body fusion stage because he was an alchemist. He had been troubled by wood dregs for a long time, so his cultivation level couldn't improve. If the protectors of the 8 sects were all Tribulation Passing Stage cultivators, then what was the cultivation level of their sect masters? Why is your protector going to Ghost Island personally? Mu Yu continued to ask. There are many demon souls and human souls on Ghost Island. They can allow the Ghost Venerable's strength to increase by another level. In addition, the Ghost Venerable is going there for a secret. This secret is only known to the Ghost Venerable alone. Azura Gue said. Mu Yu suddenly thought of Deadwood Daddy. The people of the Gate of Hell were probably the most knowledgeable about the soul than any other cultivator. Thus, he asked, "Can you the Gate of Hell heal the wounds on the soul?" Yes, the Ghost Venerable's soul was severely damaged in the past. Using a 7,000-year-old dragon vine is enough to heal the wounds on the soul. Azura Gue said, "A 7,000-year-old dragon vine can heal the wounds on the soul." Chapter 563. The forest was a mess. Broken limbs and fallen leaves were strewn all over the ground. There were even some black branches swaying in the wind. Mu Yu felt a little strange. The dragon vine could heal Deadwood Daddy's soul crack. This was something that Mu Yu never expected. How do I heal it? Mu Yu continued to ask. Kill the dragon vine, extract its demon soul, and merge it with the damaged soul. Naturally, the damage to the soul can be healed, Azura Gue replied. Mu Yu was startled. He snorted softly, but didn't say anything. The dragonized dragon vine had a lifespan of 10,000 years. The effect would probably be even better. He clenched his fist, and a cold, murderous intent flashed in his eyes. However, it quickly disappeared. At this moment, Azura Gue's body suddenly twitched violently. He was breaking free from the control of the divine soul array, and his eyes gradually regained clarity. "What did you do to me?" Azura Gue asked in shock and anger. "Nothing. I just wanted to teach you to be a good person, but you just had to court death." The surrounding black branches gathered back into the Mu Ling's sword and returned to Mu Yu's hand. A biting cold sword intent filled the sword. "You dare to kill me? If you kill me, the Ghost Lord will definitely..." Azura Gue shouted angrily. "There's nothing absolute." The Mu Ling sword in Mu Yu's hand had already moved. It slashed across Azura Gue's throat, sucking away all of his life force. Not even his soul was left behind. A barely visible white light emerged from Azura Gue's body. He wanted to escape, but the Mu Ling's sword only trembled, and the white light was sucked in. Soul power was the source of power for the 3 palaces. For some reason, Mu Yu's heart didn't waver when he killed Azura Gue this time. He seemed to have fallen in love with the feeling of killing. Mu Yu knew that some changes had occurred in his body. He just didn't want to admit it. Strange. Why doesn't he have a twin on him? Mu Yu was a little puzzled. The most powerful thing about the people from the Gate of Hell was that they could control a twin whose strength was equal to their own. But from the beginning until now, Muyu had never seen Shura ghost use twins. And when Mu Ling devoured Shura ghost life, he didn't feel another soul hidden in Shura ghost body. What was going on? He didn't have time to think. Xiao Shuai had already gone to chase after Gue Hongyu. He had to save Long Tongue. Muyu turned and blended into the trees. Soon, he saw little Shuai poking his head out from a tree 3 li away. He quickly turned around and emerged from the trees beside Little Handsome. What's the situation? Where is Gue Hongyu? Muyu asked softly. Xiao Shuai pointed to the front and whispered, "There's a ghost lair over there. They're all Japanese." Muyu leaped forward and landed on the pine tree. His movements were very light. Even the leaves of the pine tree didn't move. Lush trees grew in front of him. Below the trees was a mountain stream. There were cliffs beside it, and below it was a place that seemed to have been forcibly opened up. There were about 100 people from the Gate of Hell as far as the eye could see. There were about 70 people from the Gate of Hell. They were all at the out-of-body stage, about 20 at the spirit severing stage, and 5 at the form synthesis stage. The lowest cultivation level was at the out-of-body stage. This kind of power was already shocking. Why did the people from the Gate of Hell come to the Moyun Mountain Range in such a big way? Muyu's face darkened. Could it be that they wanted to rob the millions of people in the Moyun Mountain Range again? They seem to have hunted a lot of demonic beasts. What a strange feeling. Little Shuai muttered. The whole mountain stream was filled with the bones of demonic beasts. Some of the bones were even more than 20 meters long. Obviously, there were some high-level and powerful demonic beasts. It was very shocking. Many people from the Gate of Hell stood on the huge bones of demonic beasts, waiting for orders. They seemed to be on guard against something. At this moment, there were a few people in the crowd who were chanting something around a 5-meter-long and 5-meter-tall swordback tiger. The huge body of the swordback tiger struggled in pain in the air. Below, countless ghost fog drilled into its 7 orifices from time to time. Its sorrowful cries resounded throughout the mountain stream. The thick skin on its body slowly shriveled, as if the essence and blood had been sucked dry. Then, all the fur and blood were corroded by the ghost fog, leaving only a huge white skeleton. The essence of the demonic beast body turned into streams of light and was collected by one of the people from the Gate of Hell. At the same time, the person from the Gate of Hell drew a complicated hand gesture. The dense ghost fog gradually sealed these streams of light and formed a black crystal. Muyu finally understood where these skeletons came from. At first, he thought that these skeletons were the remains of demonic beasts that had died a long time ago. He didn't expect that every skeleton here was created by the people from the Gate of Hell. He just didn't know what the people from the Gate of Hell were doing this time. Why did they kill so many demonic beasts? Muyu quickly found Gue Hongyu's figure in the crowd. She was dressed in red and was very conspicuous among the people from the Gate of Hell. However, she wasn't the only woman among the people from the Gate of Hell. Muyu also saw a dozen or so women from the Gate of Hell wearing different colors. We can't hear what they are saying here. Muyu, make a sound sparrow, Little Shuai said. Black and white runes appeared in Muyu's hand and quickly formed an inconspicuous sound sparrow. This sound sparrow was only the size of a fingernail. It had the opposite effect of the green swallow sound snatching array. It could feed back all the sounds it heard to the caster. The sound sparrow quickly disappeared in front of Muyu's eyes and entered the ghost fog of the mountain stream. Its movements were very light and didn't alarm anyone. It was formed by runes and didn't have any extra aura. The sound sparrow landed in a crack in a rock and carefully approached Gue Hongyu. Soon, the conversation of the people from the Gate of Hell reached Muyu's ears. Why hasn't Azura Gue returned yet? A man at the combination stage asked. Master Gue Han, this time we met the true God's disciple, Muyu, not far away. Azura Gue's cultivation is at the 9th heaven of the spirit severing stage. Nothing will happen to him, Gue Hongyu said respectfully. Muyu sneered. 9th heaven of the spirit severing stage? He was just a soul under the sword. The true God's disciple? We still have to be careful. Gue Lianxin, go take a look at Azura Gue's situation and tell him to come back quickly. He is one of the 7 ghost servants. Nothing must happen to him. Otherwise, if the Ghost Lord's plan is ruined, none of us can bear the responsibility. Guehan said coldly. Yes, Master Guehan. A middle-aged man named Gue Lianxin stood out. Then his body turned into a cloud of black fog and flew out of the mountain stream. Muyu pulled little Shuai and hurriedly went into the trees. Gue Lianxin just happened to fly over their heads. Gue Lianxin seemed to have sensed something. He stopped and looked at the place where Muyu had just disappeared. However, he didn't see anything strange. He thought that he had seen wrongly and turned to leave. Muyu and little Shuai didn't come out. It was safer for them to stay in the trees. 7 ghost servants? What does that mean? Muyu didn't understand. He had already killed Azura Gue. Gue Lianxin would probably find out soon. He had to think of a way to get Gue Hongyu to rescue the dragon vine. However, there were so many people from the Gate of Hell, especially a few who were at the body fusion stage. It was still a problem for him to do it alone. The sound sparrow in the mountain stream continued to transmit the voice of the people from the Gate of Hell. Gue Hongyu, you said that you caught a 10,000-year-old dragon vine. Gue Han asked. Yes. Master, please take a look. Gue Hongyu waved her hand, and a transparent bottle floated in midair. The bottle was filled with gray fog. The dragon vine's appearance could be seen clearly. However, it didn't move at all, like a specimen. Guehan took the gray bottle and removed the cap. The dragon vine flew out of the bottle and returned to its huge body. However, its body was covered with a layer of ice crystals, and it was still roaring. Guehan waved his hand, and the ice crystals on the dragon vine's body disappeared. The dragon vine roared furiously and wanted to escape. However, the surrounding gray fog blocked it. Bastard, what do we do? The big earthworm is in danger. The Japanese are really bastards. Xiao Shuai said anxiously. Although he usually liked to quarrel with the big earthworm, when something happened to the big earthworm, he was the most anxious one. Let's observe the situation first. If we act rashly, I'm afraid we'll lose our lives too, Muyu said in a low voice. The only people in a mountain stream that could make Muyu afraid were the 5-body fusion stage people from the Gate of Hell. Although Mu Ling's sword could restrain the Gate of Hell's techniques, Muyu wasn't so arrogant as to think that he could fight against body fusion stage self-cultivators. Guehan's eyes shone with a strange light. He looked at the dragon vine with admiration and nodded. Hongyu, you did well this time. You've done a great deed by catching the 10,000-year-old dragon vine. The Ghost Lord will definitely reward you. Thank you, Master. Gue Hongyu's face showed a trace of joy. Then, as if he thought of something, he said, Master, do you want to personally deal with Muyu? If he finds out about our plan, it'll be bad. Guehan thought for a moment and said, There's no need. Right now, we need to quickly collect the souls of 1,000 5th-rank monsters. Only then can we safely enter Ghost Island. To avoid unnecessary trouble, when Shura Gue and Gue Lianxin return, we'll immediately go and meet up with the Ghost Lord. Master, something happened. Ghost fog flashed through the air again. Gue Lianxin landed in front of Gue Han with a gloomy face. He didn't look good. What happened? Where's Shura Gue? Gue Han frowned. Shura Gue is already dead. Gue Lianxin took out a transparent bottle that looked exactly like the one that held the dragon vine. Inside the bottle was Shura Gue's corpse. He removed the bottle cap, and Shura Gue's corpse appeared in front of everyone. Gue Han's face was so green that it could drip water. He shouted angrily. How did something happen to Shura Gue? Everyone saw Gue Han's anger and didn't dare to answer. Looking at Gue Han's expression, Shura Gue's identity as a ghost servant seemed to be quite important. Guehan squatted down to examine Shura Gue's corpse. His face became darker and darker. There's no trace of life or soul power left in his body. Only people from the Gate of Hell can do this. How would a true God's disciple do it? Gue Hongyu hesitated for a moment, then stood up and said, Master, when we were in the second heaven, Gue Xianyue also died at the hands of Muyu. Muyu's technique is very strange. When I fought with him just now, his technique countered my ghost fog. Guehan was furious. No, Shura is one of the 7 ghost servants. He is a person that cannot be left out in the Ghost Lord's plan. We must get his soul. Where's Muyu? Take me to him. Muyu raised his eyebrows. He realized that he seemed to have unintentionally ruined the plan of the people from the Gate of Hell. This was something new. The people from the Gate of Hell were already famous for being unscrupulous. Now, they even brought out so many demon bee skeletons. He really didn't know what they were planning to do. However, he had to think of a way to save Dragonvine. Shura Gui's soul had already been swallowed by Mu Ling's sword. He definitely couldn't get it back. Muyu didn't mind killing a few more people from the Gate of Hell and using them as sacrifices for the sword. Gui Shisheng, Gui Jujia, the 2 of you come with me. The rest of you wait here. Gui Han said eerily. Yes. Gui Shisheng and Gui Jujia were both Heaven Unification Stage cultivators. The 3 Heaven Unification Stage cultivators obviously didn't want to give Muyu any chance to live. Although the 3 Heaven Unification Stage cultivators left, there were still 2 Heaven Unification Stage people from the Gate of Hell in the mountains. These 2 people were sitting cross-legged in a dark corner, cultivating. Even when they heard the news of Shura Gui's death, they didn't move. Dragonvine was still struggling in the air, angrily looking at the people from the Gate of Hell. Gui Han didn't give the order, so Gui Hongyu didn't put away Dragonvine. Chapter 564. Other than his love for food, Lil Shuai was also a very smart guy. He often studied formations with Muyu and had already learned many formations. After hearing Muyu's arrangement, he immediately understood how Muyu planned to save Dragonvine. Without hesitation, he hugged the 10 formation bases and ran towards the trees on the left side of the mountain stream. Muyu carefully surveyed the terrain and determined the best position to set up the formation. Then, he gestured to Little Shuai to run a few more meters forward. Little Shuai then began to bury the formation bases and inscribe the formation patterns. He himself scurried into the trees and used the extension of the roots to start inscribing the formation patterns on the cliff. He had to be very careful during this process and couldn't make any noise. Otherwise, with the body integration stage cultivators of the Gate of Hell, they could easily sense that something was wrong. Countless runes spread across the cliff, and soon the entire mountain stream was surrounded by the runes. For the current Muyu, setting up a large formation wasn't difficult. Especially with Little Shuai's help, the formation quickly and quietly took shape. It's done. Little Shuai, can you imitate Dragonvine's usual cry? Muyu asked. Little Shuai wagged his tail and jumped onto Muyu's shoulder. He nodded. Of course I'm familiar with the big earthworm's cry. No problem. Little Shuai usually knew many demon languages and could use various sounds to communicate with demon beasts. He could also understand Dragonvine's words, and naturally, he could imitate Dragonvine's cry. Remember, you have to make your cry more dignified later. Make it seem extraordinary. We need to call the 2 body integration stage cultivators of the Gate of Hell over. Do you understand? Muyu's hand began to light up with the formation patterns. Got it. My cry will definitely be much more powerful than the big earthworms. Little Shuai cleared his throat. Muyu calculated carefully. He wasn't worried about the severed soul stage and out-of-body stage cultivators of the Gate of Hell. He was only worried about the body integration stage cultivators of the Gate of Hell. Although he could deal with the people from the Gate of Hell with his cultivation technique, his opponents were still at the body integration stage, so he wouldn't be able to gain much advantage over them. He had already sketched out an ingenious plan in his mind and was prepared to deal with these people from the Gate of Hell. At this moment, a few spirit-severing stage cultivators from the Gate of Hell caught 2 rank 6 monster beasts from outside the mountain stream and were preparing to convert the essence of these monster beasts into crystal stones. But at this moment, an earth-shattering roar sounded from the cliff of the mountain stream, alarming everyone in the Gate of Hell. What happened? Many of the people from the Gate of Hell raised their heads in bewilderment. They soon saw an unbelievable scene. 2 huge black dragons streaked across the sky above the mountain stream. They circled in the air and glared at all the people from the gate of hell. "This is Dragon Vine," Gui Hongyu exclaimed. She turned her head to look at the trapped dragon vine and then looked at the two gigantic black dragon vines in the sky. Her face was filled with joy. One dragon vine was enough to make them excited, but they didn't expect to see two of them. In terms of appearance, these two dragon vines were even more imposing. They were clearly much more powerful than the dragon vines they caught. Dragon vines that are 10,000 years old are very precious. How could we be so lucky to encounter three of them? Gui Lianxin said, in surprise. The Moyen mountain range is so huge. It wouldn't be surprising if there were a few dragon vines. This kind of thing can only be encountered by chance. Go and catch them for me. A body integration stage cultivator from the gate of hell ordered. All the out-of-body stage and spirit severing stage cultivators from the gate of hell soared into the sky and flew towards the two dragon vines in the sky. However, the two dragon vines in the sky opened their mouths and spat out terrifying dragon breath. All of a sudden, those out-of-body stage cultivators from the gate of hell were caught off guard. Only the spirit-severing stage cultivators were nimble and dodged the dragon breath. The ghost fog that filled the sky continued to fly towards the dragon vines. These two dragon vines were transformed by Mu Yu using Mu Ling could transform into the appearance of the dragon vines. But it wouldn't allow the dragon vines to have their own consciousness, nor would they have any cultivation. All of this was an illusion created by Mu Yu using an illusion array. Because of Mu Ling's own characteristics, the two black dragon vines weren't corroded by the ghost fog at all. Instead, they raised their heads to the sky and inhaled, swallowing all the ghost fog into their stomachs. Those people from the gate of hell immediately felt that something was wrong, but it was too late to react at this moment. The black dragon tail swept fiercely at the chests of those people from the gate of hell, sending them flying. Mu Ling's death qi contaminated the bodies of the people from the gate of hell. They were shocked and angry to find that their bodies were burning with pain, and there was even a trace of tearing feeling coming from them. The two black dragon vines that suddenly appeared in the sky weren't the only things that changed. Countless trees suddenly grew out of the ground of the mountain stream. These trees all had black branches and green leaves with white veins. Many leaves wrapped around those huge skeletons, and then all the skeletons suddenly wriggled. Flesh and blood quickly grew out of their bodies, and they became living demon beasts. What's going on? How did these demon beasts come alive? And where did these trees come from? The spirit-severing stage cultivators from the gate of hell wanted to cut these trees, but found that these trees were very strange. After being cut, the cut automatically healed. Is that Yaman? The two body integration stage cultivators from the gate of hell also stood up and looked at the changes in front of them seriously. At this moment, a huge explosion suddenly sounded in the sky. More than 20 out-of-body stage cultivators from the gate of hell screamed miserably as they fell from the sky. Deep wounds appeared on their bodies, and blood splashed in the air. A few of them even lost their arms. Hongyu, you put away the dragon vines that you've already caught. Gui Shan, the two of us go out and catch those two dragon vines. A body integration stage cultivator from the gate of hell shouted. Gui Hongyu quickly took out a transparent bottle, froze the dragon vines again, and put it away. She faintly felt that something was wrong, but looking at the two body integration stage cultivators in the sky, her heart relaxed. The resurrected demon beasts on the ground began to rush toward the people from the gate of hell. Many people from the gate of hell only paid attention to the situation in the sky and ignored the rioting demon beasts around them. Several out-of-body stage cultivators from the gate of hell were directly sent flying. As they flew out, countless tree branches grew out from the cliff and bound them tightly. The death chi entered their bodies and swallowed all the spiritual power and souls in their bodies. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen out-of-body stage cultivators from the gate of hell died. There were two body integration stage cultivators from the gate of hell. One of them was called Gui Hua, and the other was called Gui Shan. As soon as they flew into the sky, the scene in front of them changed rapidly. The two of them actually came to a jungle. Guewa frowned and reached out to touch the jungle around him. He said coldly, "This is an illusion array. I heard that the true God's disciple is also an array master. It seems that we don't need to find him. He came to us instead." Gue Shan's face suddenly changed. Not good. The dragon vines on Gue Hong Yu's body. They quickly realized that this was Mu Yu's trick, so they turned and flew down. But the illusion array blocked them, so they couldn't go out. Gue Wa shouted coldly, and a huge ghost axe appeared in his hand. The ghost axe carried a monstrous black fog and chopped at the jungle on the ground with great force. There were 3 ways to break the array. 2 of them were to destroy the array core and the array base, and the other was to break the array with brute force. There was a huge roar on the ground, and then a crack appeared in the jungle. The array pattern turned into fragments and splashed out. Muyu didn't expect this array to be able to stop the 2 body integration stage cultivators. The full-strength attack of a body integration stage cultivator was more than enough to break the array set up by Muyu in a hurry. The entire illusion array began to crack. However, Muyu is the leader of the array glyph sect. His array could still withstand 2 attacks of a body integration stage cultivator. Gue Wa raised his ghost axe and chopped down again. Boom! A fierce flash of light suddenly splashed out from the array pattern. This flash of light was very fierce. It was like an all-piercing into their eyes, making their vision blank. It was a real blank, a vast expanse of whiteness. They completely lost their vision. The 2 of them were body integration stage cultivators, so this illusion array couldn't do anything to them. However, they never thought that the illusion array set up by Mu Yu was not as simple as it looked. He had done something to this illusion array. Mu Yu knew that the illusion array couldn't trap a body integration stage cultivator. They could destroy the entire array with brute force. Therefore, this array didn't have any ability to stop them. Even an out-of-body stage cultivator could make the illusion array disappear. However, they forgot that Mu Yu was not only an array master, but also a poison master. Flowing light was a very powerful poison that could cause blindness. It could burst out a dazzling light in an instant, making people unable to see anything clearly. This was Deadwood Daddy's collection. It was so powerful that it was impossible to guard against it. Mu Yu had used this kind of thing once when he was on the floating Immortal Island. At that time, he stole it directly from Deadwood Daddy. He didn't know how to use it, so he just threw it out casually. Therefore, he was also affected at that time. However, it was different now. He was the true successor of the Poison King, Deadwood Evergreen. The 2 body integration stage cultivators from the Gate of Hell didn't expect Mu Yu to have this trick up his sleeve. The powerful and dazzling light of the flowing light also made their eyes white. They shouted angrily and immediately channeled their spiritual power to their eyes to restore their vision. In almost a moment, they regained their vision and quickly rushed to the mountain stream. However, the mountain stream was already in a mess. Many people from the Gate of Hell had fallen to the ground and were moaning. Some people were covering their eyes and wailing. Although Mu Yu's flowing light couldn't do anything to the body integration stage cultivators from the Gate of Hell, it was much easier to deal with the out-of-body stage cultivators from the Gate of Hell. A large number of out-of-body stage cultivators from the Gate of Hell had already fallen. None of them had any vitality left. Where's Gue Hong Yu? Gue Wa glanced at the people around, but found that Gue Hong Yu had disappeared. Not only that, all the trees in the mountain stream had disappeared. The monsters that were originally alive had turned into huge skeletons. The bones were scattered all over the ground. Gue Wa's face darkened. They thought that Mu Yu was outside the mountain stream, so the 2 body integration stage cultivators all came out. They didn't expect that they would be lured away and even lose the dragon vine that they had just obtained. The funniest thing was that they didn't even see Mu Yu's shadow. Mu Yu's method was too clever. He acted secretly. As long as he lured away the 2 body integration stage cultivators from the Gate of Hell, the rest was not worth mentioning. Chapter 565. Mu Yu used formations and poison techniques to fish in troubled waters. The people from the Gate of Hell were caught off guard and suffered heavy losses. Many people from the Gate of Hell were killed by Mu Yu. At this moment, Gui Han was leading the remaining people from the Gate of Hell to search for Mu Yu in the Moyun mountain range. In a valley, Mu Yu threw Gui Hong Yu to the ground. The god soul wood in his hand was already attached to Gui Hong Yu's body. He controlled Gui Hong Yu and made her obediently release the dragon vine. Big earthworm, can you not make us worry? We have to go and save you every time. It's so tiring. Little Handsome angrily jumped on a dragon vine's huge head, shaking its two horns as he spoke. The dragon vine lightly snorted. For the first time, it didn't refute Little Handsome's words. Normally, it would have already quarreled with Little Handsome. Mu Yu also sat on a rock and looked at Gui Hong Yu, standing to the side. Gui Hong Yu's cultivation was not as good as his, so she still couldn't break free from Mu Yu's control. At least for a long time, Gui Hong Yu would have to be obedient. Just now, he had already interrogated Gui Hong Yu. Unfortunately, Gui Hong Yu didn't provide more information to Mu Yu than the Shura ghost. Even Gui Hong Yu didn't know what the so-called 7 ghost servants meant. She also didn't know where the Ghost Lord was. The Shura ghost was special in that he didn't have twins. This was very strange. Since he was one of the 7 ghost servants, then the other 6 also didn't have twins. Then what did this ghost servant mean? Mu Yu, are we going to kill this flat-chested female ghost? Little Handsome asked with his hands on his waist. Mu Yu shook his head and said, forget it. Let's not kill her. We can learn the method Zhou Jinglin used to control Master Lu. We just need to engrave a god soul formation on her body. Right now, we need someone to go to the Gate of Hell to help us gather information. Back then, when Zhou Jinglin controlled Master Lu, he used the God Soul Talisman. However, the God Soul Talisman had a shortcoming, which was that once it exceeded a certain distance, it could not be controlled. Mu Yu's soul formation had the same weakness. In comparison, his method of controlling people was not as simple and effective as Xiangnan's. However, as long as he erased some of Gui Hong Yu's memories and let her return to the side of the people from the Gate of Hell, she would become a spy for Mu Yu. He had wanted to use this method to deal with Azura Gui. Unfortunately, Azura Gui's cultivation level was higher than his, so he would not be controlled so easily. However, Gui Hong Yu was different. Mu Yu really wanted to know what the people from the Gate of Hell were planning. At the same time, he was also thinking about going to the so-called Ghost Island to check out the situation. Mu Yu quickly began to inscribe the runes of the Divine Soul Array and integrate them into Gui Hong Yu's body. This was something that Mu Yu was already very familiar with. Okay, the Divine Soul Array has been set up. Let's go. Mu Yu arranged Gui Hong Yu's memories and then left with Long Tongue and Little Shuai. After a long time, Gui Hong Yu woke up. She could not remember what had happened to her in the past 2 hours, but she quickly remembered Long Tongue. Looking into her Chinquan bag, she found that Long Tongue was gone. Gui Hong Yu's expression changed greatly. She quickly stood up, checked the direction, and ran toward the mountain stream. Mu Yu and the others returned to the place where they had been cooking. Little Shuai's braised alligator meat was a little cold. He quickly restarted the fire to heat up the dishes. On the way back, he also took the time to pick the bamboo shoots and some wild vegetables. Long Tongue lay on the side, gently flapping its tail. Since it was rescued, it had not said a word. It was not even in the mood to laugh at Little Shuai. What's wrong? Big earthworm, you're still unhappy after being rescued. Little Shuai tasted a piece of braised alligator meat, smacked his lips, and then handed the alligator meat to Long Tongue. Here, I'll reward you with a piece of meat. Long Tongue still did not speak and did not take the meat from Little Shuai. Has your brain been corroded by the people of Hell's Gate? How did you become mute? Little Shuai saw that Long Tongue did not take it, so he stuffed the meat into his mouth and chewed with relish. Long Tongue kept staring at Mu Yu. Its gaze was a little strange, as if it had a lot on its mind. I just learned something from the people from the Gate of Hell. It's about healing souls. Long Tongue stopped talking. What is it? Do you believe the Japanese is nonsense? Little Shuai picked up another piece of meat. Mu Yu was also thinking about this matter. After a long time, he said, Little Shuai, did you already know how to heal Deadwood Daddy's soul? Little Shuai was halfway through handing over the meat in his hand. He paused for a moment, then shook his tail and said, I don't know. I don't know about souls. Little Shuai stole a glance at Long Tongue, and his expression was a little strange. When Muyu had asked Little Shuai how to heal Deadwood Daddy's soul, it had directly said that it did not know about this matter. But Muyu had just learned from Azura that Long Tongue could heal Deadwood Daddy's soul. He had been searching for so long to find a way to heal Deadwood Daddy's soul, but he did not know that the real medicine had been with him all this time. Muyu sighed. You already knew that you needed Long Tongue to heal Daddy's soul, didn't you? Long Tongue lowered its head, lay on the ground, and whimpered. This was what it wanted to say. Little Shuai jumped on Long Tongue's head and said anxiously, but if you treat it like that, the big earthworm will die. Although Little Shuai had always been pessimistic about Long Tongue, and even said that Long Tongue should just make medicine in Deadwood Valley, when it saw Deadwood Daddy's soul that day, it chose to remain silent. It did not tell Long Tongue the method to heal Deadwood Daddy's soul, because it knew that it would mean pushing Long Tongue into a fire pit. When Long Tongue was in the hands of the people from the Gate of Hell, it also knew that it could heal Deadwood Daddy's life. So after Muyu saved it, it had a knot in its heart. If I use Mu Ling to create a 10,000-year-old Long Tongue, can it heal Deadwood Daddy? Muyu asked. He could turn Mu Ling into a 10,000-year-old Long Tongue, but a Long Tongue turned from Mu Ling could not become a dragon. After all, Long Tongue was a different kind of existence. It was between a plant and an animal, so Mu Ling could not turn a plant into an animal. Little Shuai hesitated for a moment, then shook his head and said, if it was the old broken wood, it might be possible, but after broken would absorb the death aura of the netherworld grass, it became very impure. You saw the two big earthworms that you just created. They are completely black and cannot replace the big earthworms. After Mu Ling absorbed the death aura of the netherworld grass, not only was it unable to provide Muyu with an endless supply of life force, but even the plants it created were very strange. Muyu knew this very well. Long Tongue looked at Muyu, and its expression was very bad. After it became a dragon, it had its own consciousness. Because Muyu had a very strong wood element, it chose to follow Muyu. Usually, it liked to doze off and quarrel with Little Shuai. Occasionally, it would use the formation to help Muyu deal with the enemy. However, it never thought that it would be the key to saving Deadwood Daddy. Deadwood Daddy was very important to Muyu, and Long Tongue knew this. In fact, Long Tongue did not dislike Deadwood. Although Deadwood had always threatened to make Long Tongue into medicine, he had never done it. Long Tongue knew that Deadwood was just saying it casually. Otherwise, it would have died a long time ago. Long Tongue was very annoyed, now that it knew that it could save Deadwood Daddy, but at the cost of its own life, it was also very afraid that it would make things difficult for Muyu. When it was on Fuxian Island, it had just become a dragon and was very weak. At that time, although Muyu helped it escape, strictly speaking, it was Deadwood Daddy who saved it. Because of this, it agreed to protect Deadwood Daddy. Today, it was Muyu who took the risk to save it from a bunch of people from the Gate of Hell. Long Tongue struggled for a long time and slowly said, Muyu, if you want me to save Deadwood Daddy, I will not complain. Long Tongue was a very arrogant species. Normally, it would not bother to talk nonsense with people. It would only get angry when Little Shuai insulted it. However, Long Tongue knew how to repay kindness. If it could really save Deadwood Daddy, it did not want to run away from anything. Muyu smiled bitterly and shook his head. Don't talk nonsense. I won't kill you. No one can lose because of anyone. Do you understand? Long Tongue was slightly stunned. But Deadwood Daddy is very important to you, isn't he? Long Tongue whispered. You are also very important to me. Friends and family. I can't lose anyone. Plus, Little Shuai will not allow you to die. After it found out that you were taken away, it almost went crazy. Muyu patted Long Tongue's head and smiled. Bah, I'm not in a hurry. Whoever wants to take the big earthworm can go and take it. I don't care, Little Shuai said loudly. Muyu couldn't help but laugh. Little Shuai often quarreled with Long Tongue, but when something happened to Long Tongue, he was the most anxious. At this moment, he couldn't wait to deny it. He was really a funny little guy. Long Tongue patted its tail and said softly, "Thank you. No need to thank me. No need to thank me. Who told me to be so handsome?" Little Shuai jumped back to the pot and picked up the alligator meat to eat. "I'm not thanking you. Little mouse, don't flatter yourself." Long Tongue snorted. F***CK, I saved an ingrate. I'm so angry. Little Shuai angrily threw the meat in his hand at Long Tongue. Long Tongue opened its mouth and swallowed it. "My eyes are green. Stupid color." Muyu looked at Long Tongue and Little Shuai arguing again and smiled. Although he knew that the way to heal Deadwood Daddy's soul injury was right next to him, Muyu still chose to give up. He did not believe that there was only one way to heal Deadwood Daddy's soul injury in this world. There must be other ways that Little Shuai did not know. After all, there were many self-created techniques in the world. It was impossible for Little Shuai to know all of them. Muyu also tasted a piece of alligator meat. Little Shuai's cooking was really good. Just as he was about to eat a few more mouthfuls, a terrifying aura suddenly enveloped him. "Brat, so you were hiding here. Let's see where you can run to after killing so many of my people." Before Guehan arrived, his voice had already covered the area. The surrounding trees quickly withered, as if they were covered in a layer of frost. F***CK, F***CK. He chased me all the way here. Muyu grabbed Long Tongue and Little Shuai and jumped back, dodging the terrifying attack. Guehan's ghost aura instantly flipped Little Shuai's pot over. F***CK. Unforgivable. Little Shuai looked at the alligator meat on the ground with heartache. All the hair on his body stood up. "Let's go." Muyu did not say anything and turned around to escape. "You want to escape? Let's see where you can run to." Not only Guehan, but Gueshan and 4 other body synthesis stage cultivators also appeared from 4 other directions. The 5 body synthesis stage cultivators from the Gate of Hell had all found this place and surrounded Muyu. Their tyrannical auras instantly covered the entire area. Obviously, they had come prepared. Chapter 566. A True God's Disciple? I've been wanting to meet you for a long time. You've disrupted my plan at the Gate of Hell time and time again. Let's see where you can escape to this time. Guehan said darkly. The 5-body integration stage cultivators from the Gate of Hell were filled with ghostly chi, and a powerful pressure instantly engulfed Muyu. Muyu is only at the 7th celestial stage of the spirit severing stage. Facing 5-body integration stage cultivators from the Gate of Hell was too much of a pressure. However, the aura of the people from the Gate of Hell did not affect Muyu. With the help of Mu Ling's Chi of Death, he could easily negate the pressure of the people from the Gate of Hell. However, escaping was still a problem. "What? I'm on the Supreme Celestial Leaderboard. Do the 5 of you still want to attack me?" Muyu's mind spun rapidly as he began to think of a way to deal with them. In fact, he did not expect the words Supreme Celestial to be able to scare these 5 people from the Gate of Hell. There were clearly loopholes in the Supreme Celestial rules. As long as he used them reasonably, he could avoid them. If he wanted to escape now, he had to use the plants. "The people from the 3rd palace won't know that we killed you." A vicious smile appeared on Guehan's pale face. Since they dared to attack Muyu, they must have guaranteed that they would not violate the rules set by the 3rd palace. Everything around him was shrouded in ghostly fog, and the temperature instantly dropped by a few dozen degrees. Runes appeared under Muyu's feet, and he stepped forward. The Big Dipper constellation formation had already teleported him outside. However, as soon as he appeared, he found that the 5-body integration stage cultivators from the Gate of Hell still surrounded him. "Do you really think that you can escape from us with your speed?" Guehan laughed. It was not that Muyu did not want to teleport out. It was just that the other party's speed was not slower than Muyu's teleportation speed. Muyu could not rely on the Big Dipper constellation formation to break out of their encirclement. A black, bony claw appeared in Guehan's hand. It glowed with a cold light and was mixed with a monstrous ghost chi as it grabbed at Muyu. This claw seemed to be able to tear through the void as it came crashing down from all directions. It also firmly locked onto Mu Yu's aura, making it impossible for Mu Yu to escape. Countless formation runes appeared under Mu Yu's feet, and the Mu Ling's sword instantly enlarged, clashing fiercely with the bone claw. It was unknown what the terrifying bone claw was made of, but when it collided with Mu Ling's sword, there was a metallic clang. He felt as if his arm had been crushed by a heavy hammer. He could ignore the eerie, ghostly chi, but the attack of a body integration stage cultivator was real. Mu Ling's sword didn't show any damage, but Mu Yu was sent flying. The black and white spiritual energy in his body was constantly devouring and repairing his arm, stabilizing his injuries. Damn it, I can't care so much. Countless branches jumped out from under his feet and wrapped around Mu Yu. Mu Yu disappeared into the trees in the blink of an eye. The tree roots grew rapidly and escaped into the distance. However, the tree roots suddenly stopped, as if they had encountered some resistance. There was no way for them to continue growing. He turned in another direction and continued to escape. In the end, he found that he was firmly surrounded in all directions. It was like a barrier that blocked his way out. Most importantly, the barrier created by the people of the Gate of Hell didn't have any ghost chi. It was like a real cage, completely different from a formation. Mu Yu rushed down without hesitation. However, he only went down 10 meters before he encountered the strong resistance again. Do you really think we don't know your ability? Do you still want to use the formation runes to hide the fact that you have Mu Yuming's ability? Guihan said coldly. Mu Yu was slightly shocked. After he mastered the formation technique, he found that it could simulate any illusion. Therefore, every time he used the wood control ability, he would use the formation runes to hide it. However, he didn't expect Guihan to already know this. Are you still hiding it? Let's see where you can escape to this time. A huge wave of destructive spiritual energy swept down. The ground was instantly destroyed. All the soil, stones, plants, and trees were shaken into powder and turned into nothingness. All that was left was a big hole in the void. Mu Yu was now in the big hole. He was like a turtle in a jar. Mu Yu finally saw what the barrier was. It wasn't a formation at all. It was a transparent barrier formed by the pure spiritual energy of 5 people in the form synthesis stage. There was no ghost chi in the spiritual energy. It didn't have the unique aura of the people of the Gate of Hell. Mu Ling's restraining effect was completely useless. When Gue Xinyue escaped from the Moyen mountain range, he suspected that you were one of the 5 people in the rumors. Unfortunately, because he failed his mission, we only thought that he was looking for an excuse. It wasn't until just now that we confirmed your ability. It turns out that you are the vile spawn of Yumon and the human race. You can use the trees to restrain our ghost chi. Do you think we don't have a way to deal with it? Guihan looked at the trapped, broken wooden sword, and a victorious smile appeared on his face. When the 5 of them went back to check, they found that something was wrong. With the explanation of Gue Shan and the others, they finally confirmed Mu Yu's secret. Mu Yu knew that he had nowhere to run. He left Mu Ling's sword and stood on Mu Ling's sword. Looking at the 5 people from the Gate of Hell in the air, his heart sank. He knew that with the protection of Mu Ling, he didn't have to worry about the people from the Gate of Hell killing him. As long as he hid in Mu Ling, with the toughness of Mu Ling, the people from the Gate of Hell wouldn't be able to destroy Mu Ling. But he couldn't do that. Once Mu Ling fell into the hands of the people from the Gate of Hell, he would be imprisoned forever. There would be no possibility of escape. It seems that I underestimated the methods of the people from the Gate of Hell. Mu Yu couldn't think of any way to escape at this moment. If the people from the Gate of Hell used a formation to trap him, he had the chaotic yin and yang in his hands. He could control all the formations in the world. If he wanted to escape from a formation, it would be more than enough. But this barrier had nothing to do with a formation. It was a spiritual barrier that completely cut off his escape route. We people from the Gate of Hell have existed for thousands of years. Do you really think that we're afraid of Mu Yuming's ability? You're too naive. You rely on the vitality of the trees to restrain our ghost energy. But once we hide our ghost energy with the absolute suppression of our cultivation, You won't be able to do anything. The bone claw appeared in Gui Han's hand once again. The other 4 people also raised their magic treasures. The ghost sickles and hatchets in their hands no longer emitted a gloomy ghost energy. Instead, they turned into pure spiritual energy that was suffused with a gloomy, cold light. The terrifying cultivation of the body fusion stage continued to engulf Muyu. Gui Han and the others were not as young and arrogant as Gui Xiaoluo. They had been famous for many years and knew the consequences of underestimating the enemy, especially Muyu, who was the most unpredictable person. Therefore, even if Muyu was a spirit-severing stage cultivator, the 5 of them did not have any carelessness. Even if there was only one body fusion stage cultivator, it would be enough for him to eat a pot, let alone 5. All of Muyu's formation techniques and sword skills were useless in front of 5 body fusion stage cultivators. He was now in a precarious situation. Damn it, how could this be? Muyu never thought that he would encounter such a situation. Usually, he would rely on Mu Ling to turn into a tree root and escape. But this time, the people from the Gate of Hell had seen through all his methods. He had no way to retreat. The powerful and terrifying magic treasures smashed towards Muyu. Muyu clenched his teeth. Facing the killing blow of a body fusion stage cultivator, he could not block it. He did not even have the qualifications to fight it head-on. If he wanted to survive, he could only reintegrate into Mu Ling. But this also meant that Mu Ling would definitely fall into the hands of the people from the Gate of Hell. He was really finished. Countless branches crisscrossed and covered the wooden feather in the middle before surging upwards. The branches and leaves that filled the sky slightly blocked the sharp magic treasures. But in the blink of an eye, all of the branches and leaves were twisted into powder by the body integration stage spiritual power. The only weakness of Mu Ling was that when it turned into other plants, it lost its indestructible hardness. Although these branches were powerful, they could not withstand the attack of a body fusion stage cultivator. Muyu had no other choice. He could only hide in Mu Ling. But at this moment, a whistling sound suddenly came from the mountain forest. Then, an even more terrifying aura poured out, causing the 5 body fusion stage cultivators from the Gate of Hell to instantly change their expressions. The aura was like a violent storm, far beyond the imagination of Gui Han and the others. They did not understand how such a tyrannical aura could suddenly appear here. Who on earth is it? Gui Han looked left and right, trying to find the source of the aura. But the aura seemed to be everywhere. It overflowed from all directions and gradually swept over. The spiritual energy barrier formed by the 5 body fusion stage cultivators from the Gate of Hell immediately collapsed under the tyrannical aura. It was so weak that it could not withstand a single blow. As for the 5 body fusion stage cultivators from the Gate of Hell, they were shocked and angry and were forced to retreat. The 5 of them could not withstand such a horrifying impact. This aura was so terrifying that it made Mu Yu's heart palpitate. He did not understand where this aura came from, but he suddenly realized that the barrier that trapped him had disappeared. He immediately reacted and rushed into the depths of the ground. Mu Ling turned into a tree root and crawled on the ground at a very fast speed. In the blink of an eye, it had distanced itself from the people from the Gate of Hell. Damn it! Where do you think you're going? Gui Han roared angrily. When he saw Muyu disappear into the ground, his face twisted with hatred. The other 4 people also reacted. Their hands emitted waves of tyrannical tearing force, turning the ground into powder as they chased after Muyu's figure. But the horrifying aura rushed over again, and the 5 body fusion stage cultivators from the Gate of Hell were once again sent flying. He actually has the ability to send 5 body fusion stage cultivators from the Gate of Hell flying? What kind of person is this? They looked at each other in horror, and then looked at the place where Muyu had escaped. They knew that if they continued to chase after him, they might be killed by this mysterious and powerful aura. Gui Han shouted unwillingly, "Don't chase after Muyu. Let's leave quickly." The 5 body fusion stage cultivators from the Gate of Hell ran away without hesitation. The aura that suddenly appeared did not chase after them, but it disappeared without a trace in an instant. It came and went quickly, and they did not know where it came from. Everything returned to normal. Only the craters on the ground proved how destructive the explosion had been. Muyu drilled into the ground with all his might. Then, he chose a direction and ran nonstop. He ran wildly for 4 hours. Buzz! Halfway through, Muyu felt that the surroundings seemed to tremble slightly. But there was nothing strange, so he did not pay much attention to it. After running for a while, he found that the people from the Gate of Hell did not chase after him. Then, he drilled out of the ground and sat on the ground, panting. At the same time, he leaned against a big tree, just in case. What was it that saved us just now? Xiao Shuai asked in surprise. I don't know. Maybe it was a powerful 7th rank demonic beast. Muyu looked around and found that he had inadvertently entered the periphery of a huge forest. In the distance, there were towering mountains and precipitous ridges that stretched endlessly. It wasn't a demonic beast. If it was a demonic beast, I would have sensed it, Long Tongue said. Long Tongue could be considered the king of demonic beasts. He knew many demonic beasts like the back of his hand. At this moment, the forest Muyu was in was very quiet. There were no sounds of insects, birds, or beasts. There was only the sound of wind blowing through the leaves. The air was so quiet that it was somewhat strange. Why do I feel like I've seen that mountain somewhere before? Xiao Shuai stood up and looked into the distance. Muyu also looked at the mountain. That mountain did seem familiar, but he could not remember where he had seen it before. Chapter 567. The trees behind him were very tall and lush, covering the sky and the sun. Exuberant vitality flowed, making Muyu feel comfortable. Not far ahead, there was a broken tree that looked like it had been cut in half. It seemed like it had been broken for a while. The cut was covered with moss, and there were a few mushrooms swaying slightly. Half of the broken tree trunk was gone, but there were huge footprints on the damp ground. These footprints were at least half a meter long and disorderly. It seemed like some huge demonic beast had walked over roughly, then stopped and turned around a few times before continuing to leave. There were footprints, which meant that there were at least demonic beasts in this forest. But at this moment, the whole forest was very quiet, so quiet that it made one's heart palpitate. It was a very abnormal phenomenon that there were no birds or beasts singing in a huge forest during the day, but Muyu had seen this phenomenon once before. This is Mount Fulong. Muyu was very surprised. He hurriedly rushed into the sky and looked into the distance. Sure enough, he saw a huge mountain in the distance that looked like a sleeping dragon. Muyu was now in the deep mountain forest where he and the disciples of the other 20 sects in the Moyen mountain range had come to investigate Yu Meng's movements. How did we come to Mount Fulong? Little Shuai asked, puzzled. Muyu frowned. He had entered and exited the Moyen mountain range twice, and he had passed through this forest to find the transmission array of the 5 Yamon and use it to reach Lanchi City. But this time, he was clearly dealing with the people of the Gate of Hell in the faraway 100,000 mountains. He understood the landscape of the Moyen mountain range. Even if he had the cultivation of the spirit severing stage, he wouldn't be able to get to where he was without 2 days. But he had just escaped from the people of the Gate of Hell less than 4 hours ago. Even a cultivator of the body integration stage couldn't cross thousands of miles in 4 hours, let alone Muyu. When I was running just now, I clearly felt the surrounding terrain shake slightly. Could it be that we passed through a transmission array? Muyu sat on the treetop and thought about the direction of the journey. When they were underground, they had simply chosen a random direction to escape in. They didn't know where they had run to. Who would have thought that they would end up in the vicinity of Mount Fulong? You are now the leader of the Formation Glyph sect. Wouldn't you be able to sense it if you were to pass through the teleportation formation? Long Tongue asked. When Muyu was running, he did not feel any movement from the array pattern. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to not have noticed it. However, it didn't make sense for him to travel such a long distance in such a short time. There must be something strange going on. It's Yumon's five elements formation. That's right. Their five elements formation is different from ours. Could it be that a Yumming devil clan member was helping me just now? Muyu recalled the feeling of vibration just now. Although it was inconspicuous and not as big as the movement of the teleportation array that sent Muyu to the Mist Breath City, that strange feeling was the same as the teleportation array back then. Why don't we go to that teleportation array again? Little Shuai suggested. There's no need to go. I was the one who teleported you here. A very old voice came from the forest. This voice was full of vicissitudes of life and was simple and distant. It echoed throughout the entire forest like the sound of a bell. It was everywhere and could be heard clearly. Muyu was slightly startled. He recognized who this voice belonged to. It was Yumon's old tree chief. When he first entered this forest, his ability to control what was very weak in front of the Mu Yumming Devil Tribe. He was captured by a Mu Yumming Devil Tribe member and met the old tree leader. It was the old tree leader who gave him Mu Yumming's holy item, the wood spirit. Old tree chief. Muyu looked around in surprise, trying to find the figure of old tree chief. But as far as the eye could see, he didn't see half a figure. He sank his attention into the trees under his feet and searched the forest for dozens of miles, but still couldn't find the figure of old tree chief. Stop looking. I'm here, old tree chief said leisurely. Muyu turned his head and looked down. He was shocked. He didn't even know that there was an old man standing on a branch below him. You're not old tree chief. Who are you? Muyu looked at the old man in front of him suspiciously. This old man looked completely human. He had a white beard and white eyebrows. His eyes were slightly squinted and his face was full of wrinkles. Other than the clothes he wore were made of Bodhi leaves, he didn't look like a Yumon at all. Although Muyu hadn't seen Yumon many times, he had been captured and brought to Yumon's nest once. The Yumon's body was made of intertwined branches and intertwined roots. It was like a person made of irregular trees. Other than having human facial features and limbs, and even speaking human language, he didn't believe anything else. I'm old tree chief, the old man in front of him said with a smile. Stop pretending. I've seen old tree chief before. He doesn't look like you. Besides, Yumon doesn't look like you either. Where did you come from? Muyu looked at the old man in front of him, trying to find something special about him. However, the old man's aura was restrained. He was like 100-year-old tree that was as deep as the sea. It seems that we've been silent for too long. You cultivators have forgotten the true face of our Yumon. Do you believe me now? The old man's face suddenly changed rapidly. He turned back into the intertwined branches and returned to the appearance Muyu had seen before. This is an old tree. Wait, when did your Yumon learn how to disguise themselves? Muyu looked at old tree chief who had turned back into a human and asked cautiously. If the Mu Yumming demons could disguise themselves as humans, then wouldn't it mean that they could easily blend into the human race and cause trouble for the human race would be as easy as flipping their hands? Disguise? We've always looked like this. There's no need to disguise ourselves. Old tree chief stepped forward and arrived in front of Muyu. He looked at Muyu with a smile. Don't you Yumon all look strange? Like your bodies are made of stone and your branches are on fire? As Muyu spoke, 7 or 8 more Yumon emerged from the surrounding trees. After they left the trees, they turned back into humans. However, they didn't wear human clothes. Instead, they wore clothes made of some special leaves. They looked like primitive savages. In Muyu's eyes, it was very strange. Old Tree Chief shook his head and said with a smile, We Yumon have always looked the same as you humans. It's just that the way we do things is different. We only turn into trees when we're controlling them. At other times, we look like this. Then why were you all made of branches the last time I saw you? Muyu asked in confusion. The last time he was caught in Yumon's nest, the Yumon around him didn't look like humans. You saw us like that before because the immortal confining prison severely restricted us, so we didn't have enough spiritual energy to recover. You saw us in other places because we were still recovering, so we couldn't turn back into our normal forms. After a pause, Old Tree Chief emphasized, That's right. What you see now is our normal appearance. Really? Why didn't anyone tell me this? Muyu had always thought that Yaman was very easy to recognize and was completely different from humans. However, Old Tree Chief emphasized that their normal Muyu was the same as humans. This was very strange. No matter what attribute a Yaman has, they have two forms. When we fight with cultivators, we will turn into trees. Usually, we're no different from humans. Actually, it's not just you. I'm afraid many cultivators think that our Yaman is just a stone with branches on fire. This is because humans and Yaman are always fighting each other. There's never been peace, so it's normal that you don't know our other appearance, Old Tree Chief explained. Muyu was skeptical. He still couldn't accept the fact that Yaman could freely switch between two forms. However, Old Tree Chief was real. He wouldn't mistake his aura. He decided not to ask any more questions. He said gratefully, "Thank you for saving my life, Old Tree Chief." It didn't take much to know that it was this unfathomable Old Tree Chief who had scared away the people from the gate of hell. The old tree head nodded. "You're different. Cultivators never say thank you to our Yumeng." Muyu smiled calmly. Ever since he found out that the war between Yuman and humans was actually caused by the Threefold Palace, he felt that Yuman didn't hate humans as much as the rumors said. After all, both sides were victims of the war. The real culprit was the Threefold Palace. Then why did you come to save me? Didn't you guys leave the Moyen Mountain Range a long time ago? Muyu asked curiously. Old Tree Chief didn't have any ill intentions towards Muyu, so Muyu wasn't worried that he would do anything to him. In this forest, it was probably unrealistic for Muyu to escape from Old Tree Chief's hands. Old Tree Chief was Muyu. He could control trees. Muyu didn't have much of an advantage. Old Tree Chief looked at Muyu meaningfully and said, "I came specially to find you." "Find me? Don't tell me you're here to recruit me again." Muyu recalled what Old Tree Chief said to him. At that time, Old Tree Chief could have killed Muyu. Old Tree Chief said that he wanted to gamble on Muyu. He felt that when the war between Yuman and humans broke out in the future, Muyu might stand on Yuman's side. In the past, Muyu would have chosen to stand on the side of humans without hesitation and help them defeat Yuman. However, ever since he found out some truths, he realized that if he helped the humans defeat Yuman, he would be helping the evildoers. He couldn't help either side. He had to think of a way to stop this war and stop Threefold Palace's disgusting scheme. Blood would be spilled in war. Once lives were lost, the Threefold Palace would reap the benefits. "I didn't recruit you. I followed Mu Ling's aura to find you. However, I found that you turned the originally lively Mu Ling into a lifeless object. Do you want to explain this to me?" Old Tree Chief raised an eyebrow, as if he was questioning Muyu. This was an accident. It was really an accident. Muyu shrugged helplessly. Mu Ling was originally Mu Yu's sacred object. When Old Tree Chief gave it to Muyu, he definitely didn't want it to become like this. Unfortunately, after it absorbed the netherworld grass death energy, it became a little strange. Although nothing had happened yet, Muyu didn't know what would happen in the future. Old Tree Chief smiled and said, "I don't blame you. After all, it was the Bodhi sacred tree that chose to give it to you. Although Mu Ling changed its appearance, it can still control all plants. I came to find you because a series of things have happened on Threefold Continent this year. You were in the Moyen Mountain Range and didn't know about it." Chapter 568. After parting with Xiang Nan, Muyu went to the Moyun Mountains to find a place to cultivate. He didn't know what happened in the triple-layered continent in the past year. Yumeng has already started fighting with the humans. Old Tree Leader said slowly. Started fighting? How? Muyu was shocked. He knew this would happen sooner or later, but he didn't want it to happen when he wasn't prepared. With his current strength, he couldn't stop this war. Yuman and the humans didn't have a reason to fight. The reason for the war was because the triple-layered palace was using the humans' hatred for Yuman. In order to prevent their territories from being contaminated by the Yumeng devils, the human race was determined to fight on the battlefield and eradicate the Yumeng devils. Therefore, the self-cultivators regarded killing the Yumeng devils as a supreme honor. The self-cultivators didn't believe that the humans and Yuman could coexist. This was because the self-cultivators respected the triple-layered palace as if they were gods. The triple-layered palace's words were supreme, and no one doubted them. Muyu had always wanted to stop the triple-layered palace's plan and stop this war, but he couldn't do it with his current 7th celestial layer cultivation. Now that his master had been captured by Bai Jie. Once Bai Jie took over Sword Shadow Feng's undying body and appeared in the cultivation world in the form of Sword Shadow Feng. All the cultivators would probably fight to the death with the Yu Ming Devil Clan under the command of Sword Shadow Feng. Old Tree Leader, listen to me. Yumeng and the humans can't fight. This is all part of the triple-layered palace's scheme. Only war can provide sole power to the triple-layered palace. This war must be stopped. Muyu said urgently. Old Tree Head said seriously, I can't stop it. I only recently found out about the dirty business of the Threefold Palace. But you have to know that if the Threefold Palace wants to encourage self-cultivators to kill Yu Ming, we can only fight. We have no room for negotiation. Do you understand? The self-cultivators blindly followed the Sanchong Palace. Once the Sanchong Palace said that a war would break out, the war would start immediately. Yu Ming would not be in charge of this war. You can restrain Mu Yumeng. Muyu said hesitantly. I can't. Yu Ming only listens to the 5 spirit masters, and I am just an elder of Mu Yu Ming. Although I am very experienced, it does not mean that I can command the entire Mu Yu Ming. Once a Yu Ming of a certain race has a spirit lord, but no Yu Ming of another race has a spirit lord, then the other Yu Ming can only listen to the call of that spirit lord. I don't understand. It's impossible for you to find the spirit lords. The 5 spirit lords Yu Ming are one with the 5 of us. It's impossible for them to stand out and order you around. Muyu said. Your senior brother, Xiang Nan, said Old Tree Leader. Xiang Nan. Muyu was slightly startled. He remembered that Xiang Nan had already merged with Hutu, but he still did not believe Old Tree Leader's words. He knows the consequences of war. He won't do that. No matter what Xiang Nan did, his ultimate goal was the same as Muyu's, which was to stop the Sanchong Palace's plan. He would try his best to avoid a war and reduce the number of casualties. He would not initiate a war. Old Tree Leader said seriously, You still don't understand. Xiang Nan has now merged with Spirit Lord Tu Yu Ming. He is the only Spirit Lord Tu Yu Ming. All the Yu Ming of the 5 races have to obey his orders. If he wants a war in the end, our Mu Yu Ming will have no choice but to help him. Old Tree Leader was worried that Xiang Nan would order a war. When that happened, Mu Yu Ming would not be able to stay out of it. Muyu clenched his fists. So what's your purpose in coming to me? Xiang Nan is now Spirit Lord Tu Yu Ming. Although we haven't received any orders for a large-scale war, Tu Yu Ming has now taken the lead. They have begun to have conflicts with the self-cultivators from time to time. The flames of war have already started in some cities because they believe that Xiang Nan will lead Tu Yu Ming back to glory. So I had to find you and let you lead Mu Yu Ming. Only then will we not have to listen to Spirit Lord Tu Yu Ming's orders. You mean you will listen to my orders? Muyu asked in surprise. Old Tree Leader shook his head. Do you remember what I told you? Neither Tu Yu Ming nor the human race will trust the 5 of you. We trust Spirit Lord Tu Yu Ming in your bodies. Therefore, I will not listen to your orders. I will only listen to Master Gomong in your body. Unless you can merge with Master Gomong like Xiang Nan, I will only listen to your orders. Muyu said in a deep voice, Xiang Nan will not start a war. However, his words were not persuasive because Old Tree Leader would not believe him. Old Tree Leader did not like war. The consequences of war were quite severe. As far as I know, Tu Yu Ming already knows that Xiang Nan and Master Tu Yu Ming have merged. So, Tu Yu Ming has already gone to find Xiang Nan and asked him to lead Tu Yu Ming in battle. If Xiang Nan wants to start a war, Mu Yu Ming can only obey. We cannot disobey Xiang Nan's orders because we do not have a spirit lord. But even if Tu Yu Ming finds Xiang Nan, it will be useless. I know Xiang Nan. He will do his best to stop this war. Muyu relaxed a little. Old Tree Leader's words meant that Yimon had not found Xiang Nan yet. Let me tell you, if Tu Yu Ming finds Xiang Nan, even if Xiang Nan is unwilling, Tu Yu Ming will make him compromise. No one can maintain their composure in the face of the power of slaughter. Try this. Old Tree Leader suddenly attacked. He was so fast that Muyu did not even have time to react. A green light instantly enveloped Muyu's body. This green light caused Muyu's body to suddenly become restless. He felt that he needed to do something. What should he do? Muyu's mind was filled with excitement. He wanted to see blood. He wanted to suck the life out of others. Only then could he satisfy his desire to kill. That's right. He wanted to kill. Muyu's eyes began to emit a strange black and white light. He stared coldly at the Muyu Meng around him. The shadow clone sword in his hand was already flying towards one of the Muyu Meng behind Old Tree Leader. Ding! Old Tree Leader tightly grasped the shadow sword. At the same time, the green light on Muyu's body disappeared. The restless feeling slowly subsided. The desire to kill also gradually disappeared from Muyu's mind. Muyu stared at Old Tree Leader in shock. He did not understand what Old Tree Leader's green light was. He had actually wanted to kill. It was exactly the same as when he had lost control of himself and was bewitched by Gomong. Old Tree Leader returned the shadow clone sword to Muyu and said sternly, "Do you understand how serious the situation is now? I have the ability to make you fall into a killing frenzy, but so does Tu Yu Ming. If Tu Yu Ming finds Xiangnan will no longer be the person you know. He will definitely be influenced by the power of slaughter. He will lead Tu Yu Ming, and even our Muyu Ming, to wage war against the humans." Muyu took a step back to put some distance between him and Old Tree Leader. He asked in disbelief, "What did you do to make me want to kill so badly?" Needless to say, there was definitely someone like Old Tree Leader among Tu Yu Ming. Once Tu Yu Ming's elders made a move against Xiangnan might not be able to maintain his original heart. Xiangnan's thoughts had already become very extreme. Old Tree Leader said, "You don't have to be wary of me. This power is the other half left behind by Lord Gomong. I only found this lost power recently. This power has the most primitive instinct to kill. It makes people bloodthirsty and can help you quickly undo the seal in your body. Jin Yu Ming, Hui Yu Ming, and Shui Yu Ming have all found the other half of the power left behind by the other spirit lords. They are also looking for their own spirit lords, but they will not be as merciful as me." Muyu was slightly shocked. He had heard from Gomong that the 5 of them only had half of the power of the 5 spirit lords. Gomong did not say where the other half was. He did not expect Old Tree Leader and the others to find it. "Then why do you choose to believe me?" Muyu did not understand. He was currently suppressing Gomong. With Old Tree Leader's identity, he should be helping Gomong break free. "It's not that I believe you. This power of killing was taken away by Jianing and sealed by Chun Feng. This power is too vicious and will make you lose yourself. I can't guarantee what will happen to you after you are affected by this power. Perhaps you will become even worse and become bloodthirsty. From the fact that you even killed our own people just now, you can tell that obtaining this power now is not good for me, so I won't give it to you." Old Tree Leader explained. After a while, Old Tree Leader said, "But Xiangnan is the real spirit lord Tu Yumeng. He can control this power. Huti used to be bloodthirsty, so whether Xiangnan is willing or not, this power will make Xiangnan fall into the desire to kill. He will definitely lead Tu Yumeng to war with the cultivators. When that happens, everything will be irreversible." Muyu roughly understood the situation. He was silent for a moment before asking, "You don't want me to obtain this power, but you want me to lead Tu Yumeng. What's your plan?" "I can't sense Lord Gomong's existence from your body." "Then, Lord Gomong must have been sealed by Jianing and Chun Feng. This kind of seal can only be broken by the power of killing. This power in my hand comes from Lord Gomong. You can't control it without fusing with Lord Gomong. However, if you produce the power of killing, you can control it. Therefore, you have to produce the power of killing as soon as possible to break the seal. Then, you have to fuse with Lord Gomong and lead us. As long as you choose not to fight, Tu Yumeng can withdraw from this war," Old Tree Leader said. So it was still impossible to avoid killing? Muyu did not want to fuse with Gomong because he had seen the change in Xiangnan's personality after he fused with Hutu. It would cause him to become extreme. However, If Xiang Nan was infected by the power of killing again, he might forget his original intention. He might forget that he was doing this to stop the threefold palace. In order to satisfy his desire to kill, he would lead Tu Yumeng to war with the humans. At that time, he would really follow the will of the threefold palace. Once Qingyan and Luo Shang were found by Jin Yumeng and Hui Yumeng, they might be infected by the desire to kill that did not belong to them and break the nine heaven sealing formation. When that happened, the situation would be even worse. It was impossible for Old Tree Leader to keep Mu Yumeng out of this because Mu Yumeng did not have a spiritual master. When that happened, they would have to obey whatever the other spiritual masters wanted Mu Yumeng to do. Therefore, Mu Yu had to choose Mu Yumeng and become his spiritual master. Only by leading Mu Yumeng would they be able to avoid this war as much as possible. All of this was based on the premise of breaking the nine heavens sealing formation. Mu Yu could use the formation to break the seal when his cultivation reached the tribulation passing stage, but by then, Yuman would have already started fighting with the humans. Chapter 569. A gentle breeze blew through the forest. Looking down from a high place, the treetops of every tree in the forest swayed at the same time, as if green waves were rolling. At this moment, there were 10 figures standing on top of the waves. Even if a self-cultivator passed by at this moment, he would not think that 9 of the 10 people were the real Mu Yumeng, and one of them had an unclear relationship with Mu Yumeng. Although Mu Yu did not want to kill casually, he had long realized that he had unknowingly become accustomed to the passing of life. Some things had quietly changed his view of life. If some people did not deserve to live in this world, then he indeed had to reap their lives. A black and white light flashed across Mu Yu's eyes. He said calmly, "I understand. I know what I should do." Old Tree Leader stood with his hands behind his back. Seeing that Mu Yu had made up his mind, he smiled again and said, "We will wait for you. Mu Yumeng does not like war, but when war breaks out, we cannot stand by and do nothing. I know that you want to revive a person called Deadwood Evergreen, so you need his soul to be intact. Go to Ghost Island, you can nourish the soul there. This is also the goal of the people from the Gate of Hell." The people from the Gate of Hell were the beginning of Mu Yu's massacre. I realized that Mu Ling's injuries have healed a lot. Absorbing the power of the soul can also heal it. This time, I only saved you from the Gate of Hell and did not take care of them because I feel that the people from the Gate of Hell should die in your hands and become nourishment for Mu Ling, not die in my hands. Take these 3 Bodhi leaves. If you encounter a situation like that again in the future, you can inject your spiritual energy into the Bodhi leaves. It will turn into the 5 elements escape technique to help you escape. You can also rely on it to find me. Old Tree Leader opened his palm, and the 3 Bodhi leaves gently floated from his palm and landed in front of Mu Yu. Mu Yu took the Bodhi leaves and was surprised to find that the 3 Bodhi leaves were connected to old Shu Zhang's aura. It was as if there was an invisible thread that could lead him to old Shu Zhang's location. As far as I know, many people from the Gate of Hell have come to the Mayan mountain range this time. You have to be careful. Don't let that kind of accident happen again. Old Tree Leader nodded kindly at Mu Yu before his figure gradually disappeared into the forest. The other 8 Mu Yumengs also followed behind him. "Old Tree, you seem to be doing well," Dragonvine said. "Yeah. Do you think Yumeng can be eaten?" Xiao Shuai asked while wagging his tail. "Why do you eat everything? Go eat sh*t. Long Tongue said snappily. Mu Yu laughed involuntarily. Xiao Shuai was really a good child who was not picky about food. The Moya Mountain Range had a famous place, and that was Mass Burial Valley. The Disorderly Burial Valley was actually an underground fissure that was several thousand meters long and 200 meters wide. It was so deep that one couldn't see the bottom. Every midnight, there would be ghostly cries and wolf howls coming from the bottom of the Disorderly Burial Valley. It was very scary. There were many villages near the Disorderly Burial Valley. The people in these villages had a custom. After a person died, they would dress the dead in the most solemn clothes and throw them into the Disorderly Burial Valley. In their legends, the Disorderly Burial Valley was an underground fissure that led to the reincarnation cycle of the underworld. The dead could only be reincarnated when they were thrown in. Some people in the cities would also bring their corpses here from afar and throw them down. This was also a good place for many self-cultivators to destroy their corpses. Once, Gui Xianyue killed 49 self-cultivators from the Jindan period here and found Feng Haochen's hiding place with the help of the soul tracking array. The disorderly burial valley was located on a high slope. It was shrouded in gray fog all year round, and even the sun couldn't shine in. At the bottom of the slope, there was a funeral procession made up of several hundred people. At this moment, mournful trumpets were leading the way. These 100 people were all mortals from the nearby villages. The person who died today was a 90-year-old old man. For a mortal to be able to live to 90 years old was already quite good. Because of the high seniority, according to the village's custom, the entire village had to come to the funeral procession. A few people wearing mourning clothes carried a Nama coffin. Along the way, paper money flew and danced in the wind. This funeral procession slowly followed the mountain path to the disorderly burial valley. The uphill road was very difficult to walk, especially when they were carrying a heavy coffin. The faces of the few people carrying the coffin were flushed red. Every now and then, they would have to stop and rest for a while. By the time they carried the coffin to the edge of the disorderly burial valley, everyone was already sweating profusely. The coffin was placed at the edge of the disorderly burial valley. Below, there were gusts of cold wind. When the paper money fell down, it would quickly be blown up. If one were to pay attention, they would realize that not a single paper money fell into the disorderly burial valley. In front of the coffin was a simple table. On top of it was an incense burner with 3 sticks of incense. There are also some offerings for the deceased to not starve on the road to the Yellow Springs. On the ground, there was an iron bucket. The paper money inside was burning vigorously. 40 to 50 family members knelt in front of the coffin and cried loudly. Although many of them did not cry at all, according to the village's custom, the louder the children and grandchildren cried, the more filial they were. Therefore, every child and grandson cried as loudly as they could, afraid that they would be labeled as unfilial. Chun Erzwang was a man with a dark complexion. He was also in the business of the dead. Whether it was the coffin or the paper money offerings, they all came from his shop. The people in the village were uncultured. Therefore, every time he would help people write a memorial and follow the funeral procession here to send off the deceased. Chun Erzwang knew the custom of the dead better than anyone else. Because he dealt with the dead all year round, he always had a sad professional face. He glanced at the 40 to 50 family members who were crying desperately and sighed in his heart. Among these 40 to 50 people, there were probably less than 5 who were truly sad. Perhaps it was because he often saw this kind of scene, so he could tell at a glance who was revealing their true feelings and who was deliberately wiping their tears with onions. When people grew old, they would bring a lot of burden to their family, especially if they had many children and grandchildren. Retirement would become a problem. If they had many sons, unless they met a truly filial son, they would not take the initiative to support them. After the death of the old man, the children and grandchildren would feel relieved. For them, there is no need to spend extra energy and money. Dear villagers, we come with a heavy heart to send off Old Master Zhao. Old Master Zhao had many children and grandchildren. He lived an honest and simple life. Now that he has died of old age, it is a happy funeral. His children and grandchildren are all very filial. Chun Erzwang understood the situation of this family. To be honest, although the dead old master Zhao lived to the age of 90, he did not have a good life in his later years. He had lived for too long. He had 3 sons, 2 daughters, 10 grandchildren, and more than 20 great-grandchildren. For generations, living under the same roof should have been a happy thing. However, none of his 3 sons were willing to take the initiative to support him in his old age. None of his grandchildren were willing to visit him. He had lived alone for more than 10 years. He was only discovered 3 days after his death. The funny thing was that it was not his relatives who discovered the news of his death, but a dog he raised. It barked at the door for 3 days before someone noticed that something was wrong. The tree wants to be quiet, but the wind will not stop. The child wants to be raised, but the parents are no longer around. Old Master Zhao raised so many outstanding and filial children in his life. He was a kind father and filial son. Now that he is left like this, people can't help but sigh at the impermanence of the world and the unfairness of fate. Chen Erzwang snorted disdainfully in his heart. When he had just arrived at the Zhao family, Old Master Zhao's 3 sons were still arguing over who would inherit the house that Old Master Zhao lived in when he was alive. But what did this have to do with him? He was just a businessman. It was fine as long as he chose the right words to say. Now that the dead are gone, the living should restrain their grief. Old Master Zhao's spirit in heaven will definitely protect his descendants' health and longevity. Let us send Old Master Zhao off together. Old Master Zhao, rest in peace. Chen Erzwang sometimes thought that he had been sending off the dead his whole life. Then who should read the eulogy for him after he died? Old Master Zhao's descendants cried loudly again. Everyone was about to tear their throats. Some of them cried until their voices were hoarse, but they still tried their best to cry out loud. The time has come. Old Master Zhao should be on his way. Chen Erzwang gestured, and the 4 workers he had brought immediately came forward. They solemnly lifted the coffin and then slowly pushed it into the bottomless, chaotic burial valley. The heavy Nammo coffin quickly fell into the abyss. The cold wind blew and soon disappeared into the gray fog. Old Master Zhao's descendants followed Chen Erzwang's orders and all rushed to the edge of the chaotic burial valley, crying and begging for him to stay. Father, don't go. This child hasn't finished being filial. Grandfather, don't leave us. Great-grandfather, come back quickly. Everyone was crying and shouting with all their might. Try to persuade Old Man Zhao to stay. Old Master Zhao's death wasn't a big deal to them. They even hoped that he would die early so that the neighbors wouldn't gossip. Chen Erzwang still had a sad expression. He sighed lightly. Although it was customary to cry out like this to show the descendants' reluctance to part with their loved ones, this kind of thing often seemed like a joke. But at this time, Old Master Zhao's descendants suddenly cried out in fear. Everyone screamed and ran back as if they had seen something terrifying in the chaotic burial valley. Chen Erzwang felt that this was a bit strange. He didn't want these people to scream like this. He turned his head to look down at the bottom of the chaotic burial valley. This look was fine, but he was so scared that his legs went soft and he almost fell down. Old Master Zhao's Nammo coffin didn't fall down. Instead, it slowly rose up. A strange aura came from the coffin. Soon, a cold aura enveloped everyone. Everyone was so scared that they couldn't move. The Nammo coffin gradually floated up from the bottom of the chaotic burial valley and appeared in front of the hundreds of people. Then, with a heavy sound, the coffin lid slowly slid open. Old Master Zhao suddenly stood up straight from the coffin. Ghost! All the mourners screamed in fear. They wanted to turn around and run away, but an invisible force suppressed them. They were horrified to find that their legs no longer listened to them. A sinister smile suddenly appeared on Patriarch Zhao's wrinkled face. His eyes slowly opened, revealing a pair of eyes that were as black as ink, without the slightest white in them. The most frightening thing was that Old Master Zhao actually opened his mouth, which had long since lost all of his teeth, and spoke. Weren't you crying for me to come back? Why are you all so scared now that I'm back? Old Master Zhao laughed sinisterly. His laughter was like a demonic beast grinding its teeth. It scared his descendants out of their wits. Father, you should leave quickly. Yes, it was Big Brother and Second Brother who wanted to take over your house. I just don't like the look of it. Nonsense. It was clearly Third Brother who shouted the loudest. The 3 sons suddenly began to blame each other. They thought that Old Master Zhao didn't want to leave because of the house, so they hurriedly tried to shift the blame. So it's like this. Then why don't the 3 of you come with me and continue to be filial to me in the netherworld? Old Master Zhao suddenly stretched out his hand, and a monstrous ghost aura instantly enveloped his 3 sons. The 3 of them roared in pain, and then gradually lost their voices. Only 3 white souls floated up from their bodies, and Old Master Zhao opened his mouth and swallowed them all into his stomach. Old Master Zhao sucked the souls of his 3 sons. He stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. Then he looked at everyone and laughed sinisterly. I'll take all the souls of your Zhao family. Kiki. Chapter 570. After Mu Yu returned from Fu Long Mountain, he first went to Qingshou City. Qingshou City was under the jurisdiction of Qingsong School. Many self-cultivators in Maoyun Mountain Range would gather here. It was undoubtedly the best place to inquire about the situation in Maoyun Mountain Range. Since Mu Yu wanted to find the whereabouts of the people from the Gate of Hell, he had to start from here. As for where the people from the Gate of Hell wanted to go to the Ghost Island, Mu Yu had no clue, because until now, only one person knew the location of the Ghost Island. That was Duke Red Dragon, who was subdued by perfected Jiuhua. After not returning for a few years, Qingshou City had already undergone tremendous changes. In the past, Qingshou City was still the location of a school. Later on, under Mu Yu's request, the Qingsong Taoists abolished the Gray Disciple system. Now, the school still existed, but the Gray Disciples who served in the school were no longer servants for life. They were paid for their service. Every self-cultivator who wanted to stay in the school or order the Gray Disciples around had to pay a certain amount of spirit stones. This rule was set by Mu Yu at the request of the Qingsong Taoist. At that time, the Qingsong Taoist had prestige in Maoyun Mountain Range. No one dared to say no, so the school could be considered to have undergone a major reform. Little Shuai was happily eating 2 buns on Mu Yu's shoulder. Mu Yu directly flew into the school. There weren't any major changes in the school. The only difference was that all the sects no longer had their own independent courtyards. All the courtyards could be rented out. Different courtyards had different prices. If a cultivator wanted to stay here, they would need to spend spirit stones. The system of selecting disciples for each sect did not change. They were still selected from the school every year. If they were not selected, they could be a Gray Disciple in the school and work for self-cultivators to earn spirit stones. Although their status was low, at least they would not be ordered around. The one who received Mu Yu was a 16 or 17-year-old Gray Disciple. He looked very smart and diligent. He was also very talkative. Everyone called him Little Fei. After Mu Yu paid him 10 spirit stones, he brought Mu Yu to a clean, independent courtyard. Sir, do you have any other orders? Xiao Fei himself was only at the first layer of Qi Disciple, so he was very respectful towards any cultivator. Furthermore, Mu Yu's aura was steady, and he could tell at a glance that he was not an ordinary person, so he did not dare to slight him. I have a few questions. If you answer them well, I'll give you another 10 spirit stones. Mu Yu placed 10 spirit stones on the table and stroked Little Handsome's tail. When Xiao Fei saw the 10 spirit stones, his face lit up with joy, and he quickly promised, Sir, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I will tell you everything I know. Has anything major happened in the cultivation world recently? Mu Yu asked. Now that the people from the Gate of Hell had come to the Maoyun Mountain Range, if they wanted to massacre the cultivators or mortals here, the Maoyun Mountain Range would not be able to stop them at all. However, if the people from the Gate of Hell were to do something big, it would definitely cause a commotion. Something big? Let me think. Qingsong School issued the 23rd Qingsong Alliance Command, which is a big deal. 2 days ago, the Langshan sect changed its leader, which is a big deal. 5 days ago, the daughter of the leader of the Wuan sect got married, which is a big deal. Xiao Fei began to talk nonstop about the Maoyun Mountain Range. However, these were all trivial matters of the major sects in the cultivation world, which was not what Mu Yu wanted to know. Originally, the Maoyun Mountain Range was very remote, and the spirit energy was thin. First of all, the cultivators of the 3 continents did not know that the immortal confinement prison had been lifted. Even if they knew, they would not come here for no reason, unless they were people like the people from the Gate of Hell who had ulterior motives. All right, then let me ask you again. Have there been any cultivators with high cultivation who emitted black gas and looked cold recently in the cultivation world? Muyu originally wanted to ask if he had seen anyone from the Gate of Hell, but after thinking about it, he realized that the cultivators of the Moyun mountain range did not know what the people from the Gate of Hell were. This place was isolated from the rest of the world, so they were not clear about the layout of the three continents. Cultivators who emitted black gas? I haven't seen them before, but 2 days ago I heard some haunted things that caused a lot of commotion. I wonder if you would like to know? Xiao Fei asked after hesitating for a moment. Tell me about it. It's like this. You should know that there's a mass burial valley in the north. That place is lifeless all year round. If anyone in the nearby villages lost their relatives, they would throw the dead into the bottomless mass burial valley. Just a month ago, there was a funeral procession that went to the funeral of a 90-year-old old Master Zhao, as usual. At that time, I heard that the coffins had already been thrown down, but who would have thought that Patriarch Zhao would suddenly float out of the mass burial valley and say some strange words? Then, his 3 sons suddenly died, and then a large amount of cold and oppressive black fog appeared. Patriarch Zhao's 56 descendants, including his son-in-law and daughter-in-law, all died. Everyone in the funeral procession died. Muyu furrowed his brows. He had a deep impression of the mass burial valley. At that time, Gui Xianyue had Daoist Jiuhua kill 49 Jinan period cultivators in the mass burial valley and used the soul-searching array to find the whereabouts of Jianing and Shenfeng. Muyu had never liked the mass burial valley. That gloomy underground fissure was probably the favorite place of the people from the Gate of Hell. Xiao Fei mysteriously said, "That's where it's strange." Old Master Zhao was 90 years old, and according to the customs of their village, every family in the village had to send 2 people to the funeral. So in reality, there were about 200 people who went to the funeral procession. However, only Old Master Zhao's family died. The others all fainted. When they woke up, they found that Old Master Zhao's entire family was dead. And who had a grudge against Old Master Zhao? They actually killed all of his descendants? Muyu felt that it was very strange. At first, he thought that it was the people from the Gate of Hell. However, the people from the Gate of Hell would not leave anyone alive. They would not be so merciful and only kill Old Master Zhao's descendants. Impossible. It is said that Old Master Zhao did not have anyone to take care of him when he was alive. He was only discovered 3 days after his death. After his death, his 3 sons began to fight for his inheritance. They all said that Old Master Zhao's descendants had no conscience. Old Master Zhao died with his eyes wide open, so he came back from the netherworld to take away all of his descendants. Xiao Fei said, "Then, are the other people in the funeral procession all right?" Muyu asked. They are all fine. Those people saw with their own eyes that Old Master Zhao took away his 3 unfilial sons and sank into the mass burial valley. This matter is absolutely true. Xiao Fei patted his chest and guaranteed. He was afraid that Muyu would not believe half a word, and then the 10 spirit stones would fly away. So strange. Muyu rubbed his chin and fell in a deep thought. According to Xiao Fei's description, the black fog was a characteristic of the people from the Gate of Hell. The ghost chi that they emitted was similar to the black fog. However, the people from the Gate of Hell would not be so kind as to specially help Old Master Zhao punish his unfilial descendants. If they wanted to kill, they would definitely kill everyone. Sir, if you have any other questions, please ask. I am very well informed. There is basically nothing that I do not know. Xiao Fei stared at the 10 spirit stones on the table. As long as he could get these 10 spirit stones, he would be able to answer questions for a day and a night. Muyu pondered for a moment and asked, "Did anything strange happen a year ago? Was it between the sects? Was there a heavenly anomaly or something like that?" A year ago, the immortal confinement prison in the Moyun mountain range was lifted. This was a major matter and should not have been done quietly. A heavenly anomaly a year ago? Who in the cultivation world doesn't know about that matter a year ago? Sir, you should also know about it. Xiao Fei was somewhat puzzled. I was in secluded cultivation a year ago and only came out recently. Is that so? Could it be that Sir doesn't know about it? Then I will tell you in detail. Xiao Fei's face revealed a trace of astonishment. A year ago, there was indeed a heavenly anomaly. Moreover, it was so powerful that all cultivators and mortals saw it. At that time, the sky was dyed golden, incomparably gorgeous, and many mysterious and complex characters were densely distributed in the sky. Then, streaks of sacred white light appeared in the sky, crisscrossing like a spider web. Then, as if the sky had shattered, all the golden characters began to fall, turning into fragments and disappearing. Muyu silently listened to Xiao Fei's description. He didn't need to think to know that the so-called white light was the method of the guardian of the third palace. It should be a sign that the immortal confinement prison had been broken. Sir, you might not believe it, but after the anomaly, a celestial being covered in white light appeared in the falling dust sect. Yes, it was the poor sect that was looked down upon the most in the cultivation world, the falling dust sect. The celestial was covered in divine might, and the white light was so sacred that it made people feel reverence. How could we have imagined that the celestial being would appear directly in the falling dust mountain? Xiao Fei exclaimed in admiration. Muyu sneered in his heart. At the same time, he was furious. The third palace's people were covered in sacred white light to conceal their dark nature. How ironic. No one understood why the celestial being would descend on the falling dust mountain. However, the celestial being's figure was several thousand feet tall and could be clearly seen from several hundred kilometers away. The falling dust mountain was like a small stone in front of him. Afterwards, the white light instantly enveloped the entire falling dust mountain. Then, it was said that the sect master of the falling dust sect, Feng Haochen, flew out of the falling dust mountain and disappeared into the white light. Everyone said that Feng Haochen was lucky and was received by the celestial being into the heavens. Xiao Fei said with a face full of envy. Received into the heavens? Muyu hated this saying. His master had been captured by the White Realm, and he was powerless to do anything. Now, outsiders were saying that the celestial being received into the heavens? That disgusting guy from the third palace was worthy of being called a celestial being? Xiao Fei was just a gray disciple, just like all the other self-cultivators. How would they know about the conspiracy behind this? If this happened on the third continent outside the Moyun mountain range, many self-cultivators would think that being taken away by the Sanchong Palace was a lucky thing. The third palace was wearing a sacred skin to do shameful things. They were truly shameless to the extreme. Xiao Fei took a deep breath and continued. Many cultivators wanted to go to the falling dust mountain to see what was going on. However, the falling dust mountain had a very powerful formation that prevented people from entering. Therefore, this matter was left unsettled. However, the falling dust mountain had already become a sacred ground in the eyes of many people. After all, it was the place where the celestial being personally descended. The falling dust mountain had always been a sacred ground in Muyu's eyes. It was indeed the place where a true god lived. That true god's name was Jian Ing Chenfeng. He was not someone that a treacherous person like the third palace could compare to. Muyu quietly listened to Xiao Fei's story. He didn't reveal any strange expressions. He didn't want Xiao Fei to see any clues. Here are 10 spirit stones. Take them. If you see or hear about the people I described, help me keep an eye out. I will come find you in the future. Muyu pushed the spirit stones to Xiao Fei. Xiao Fei quickly put away the 10 spirit stones. His movements were very fast. He was afraid that Muyu would go back on his words and take the spirit stones away. Don't worry, sir. I will definitely keep an eye out for sir. They emit black energy and are cold. Their cultivation is high. Remember. Xiao Fei nodded his head like a chick pecking at rice. 10 spirit stones for 2 sentences. This was a gold mine. How could he dare to be negligent? Muyu pondered for a moment and put away some of the anger in his heart. He needed to go to the chaotic burial valley to see what was going on. Chapter 571. The spiritual energy in the Moyun mountain range was very scarce. Even though the restriction of the immortal confinement prison had been lifted for a year, it was said that there were still no nascent soul stage cultivators in the Mayan mountain range. This was because the spiritual energy here was still not enough to sustain a cultivator during the Jindan period to break through to the nascent soul stage. I wonder when the next nascent soul stage cultivator will appear in the Mayan mountain range, Muyu muttered. How can the spiritual energy seep in from the outside so quickly? After all, this place has been suppressed for more than 100 years. I'm afraid it will take more than 100 years to recover. Xiao Shuai was not surprised. 100 years was indeed unfair to the cultivators in the Moyun mountain range. Muyu was no stranger to the road to the disorderly burial valley. After all, he had been here once. The incident with Gue Xianyue was still fresh in his mind. Muyu arrived at the disorderly burial valley. The surroundings were filled with gray fog, and energy was flowing everywhere. He did not show himself directly. Instead, he paid attention from afar, tried to find clues about the people from the Gate of Hell. If they were really from the Gate of Hell, then it would be unwise for them to appear directly in the disorderly burial valley. However, there was no one in the disorderly burial valley except for the energy. Even birds were unwilling to fly here. The bottom of the disorderly burial valley was filled with dead people. Over the years, countless energy had accumulated, causing this place to always be terrifying. The people from the Gate of Hell would indeed like to cultivate in this place where the energy was extremely dense. There were many resentful spirits here, which they could use to refine their own magic treasures. When Gue Xianyue used the soul tracking array, she had relied on the energy here to set up the array. This place was a treasured land for the people from the Gate of Hell. Muyu guessed that the people from the Gate of Hell might be divided into two groups. One group was collecting resentful spirits in the 100,000 mountains, and the other group was waiting here. After all, he remembered that Gue Han had said that they would only be able to enter the Ghost Island after collecting 1,000 demonic beast souls. He was afraid that this mission would not be so easy to complete. How long do we have to wait? Long Tongue muttered. Muyu and Little Shuai had been waiting on a mountain peak in the distance for nearly an entire day because he was worried that there would be people from the Gate of Hell in the body integration stage. When the time came, it would not be so easy to provoke them. But after waiting for a long time, he didn't see any trace of the people from the Gate of Hell. In the end, he decided to take the risk and get closer to see what was going on. Xiao Shuai, lower your voice when you're eating. We're going to look for a dead person. Can you be more serious? Muyu had a headache as he watched Xiao Shuai munching on the apple. Oh, Xiao Shuai took another bite. Dead people couldn't affect Xiao Shuai's appetite. He cautiously approached the valley of disorderly graves and frowned as he sensed the aura around him. There's no aura of people from the Gate of Hell here. Muyu had fought with the people from the Gate of Hell more than once or twice, so he was very familiar with the strangeness of their techniques. If the people from the Gate of Hell were here, they would definitely leave behind a bone-piercing, cold aura. Even the air would be filled with a chill that was difficult to disperse. If it's not people from the Gate of Hell, then who could it be? Dragon Tongue asked curiously. We're not going to go down and see what's going on, are we? Xiao Shuai finally finished eating the apple. Then, he looked at the bottomless crack in the ground with disgust. Inchi floated up from below, making people feel very uncomfortable. Little mouse, aren't you going to taste the taste of souls? Dragon Tongue snorted. I'm not going to eat such disgusting things. Xiao Shuai said. The valley of disorderly graves was like a bottomless sinkhole. Until now, no one knew what was at the bottom of the sinkhole. However, everyone could imagine corpses everywhere, coffin fragments scattered all over the ground, bones piled up into mountains, and so on. No matter what, many people have been thrown in here. In any case, we've even gone through the corpse formation. What's there to be afraid of in this valley of disorderly graves? Muyu said calmly. In his heart, he was actually a little repulsed. To some extent, this place was even more terrifying than the corpse formation. When he went through the corpse formation, at least he knew what was waiting for him. However, in the valley of disorderly graves, no one knew what would jump out. However, although the valley of disorderly graves was full of dead people, most of them were mortals. There might be some cultivators whose bodies had been destroyed. The strongest cultivator was only in the Jindan period. Even if they could become spirits, they wouldn't be heaven-defying, right? No matter what, he was still a spirit-severing stage cultivator. It was reasonable for him to be afraid of a few souls. Besides, if it really was the gate of hell, he could just throw out Mu Ling and run away. I don't like this decision. Xiao Shuai curled up his body and drilled into Mu Yu's clothes. He stuck out his small head with a face full of unhappiness. Coward, Dragon Tongue mocked. Bah, I'm just being cautious. There's an aura here that I hate. Xiao Shuai sniffed. What aura is that? Dragon Tongue asked curiously. It's as annoying as the aura on your body. Xiao Shuai said without any trace of politeness. Mu Yu told the two of them to stop making noise. It was as if they were afraid that people would know that they were going to explore the pile of dead people. He stepped on Mu Ling and jumped into the valley of disorderly graves. A cold wind blew against Mu Yu's body. The cold air penetrated his body. He was surprised to find that his spiritual energy couldn't repel this cold air. This cold wind had a strange penetrating power that ignored the obstruction of spiritual energy. He descended very slowly and didn't dare to slack off. He was always on guard against people from the gate of hell who would jump out of nowhere. Around him were rugged and uneven rocks with a thin layer of frost. Other than that, there wasn't even a single plant. It was as if there was no life here. I remember the underground palace of the devil race. At that time, there were at least some things with rich spiritual energy that attracted me. There's nothing here. Why do you think we have to explore the underground? Xiao Shuai asked with a pout. If you don't explore the underground, do you want to go to the sky? Why don't you go and walk around the sun? Long Ting curled her lips. What do you know? When we were in the second heaven, we did go to the sky. At that time, we found a 9-chi soul cleansing flower in the sky. Xiao Shuai snorted. However, Mu Yu didn't fall for very long. After about an hour, he was surprised to find that he had already sunk to the bottom of the valley of disorderly graves. Corpses were everywhere, coffins were shattered, and white bones were everywhere. There wasn't a single thing that he imagined. The bottom of the valley of disorderly graves was just ordinary gravel. There were no insects, no moss, nothing. It was so quiet that it was terrifying. Strange? Didn't they say that this was the place to dump corpses? Why aren't there any corpses? Xiao Shuai blinked. Mu Yu also didn't understand. Even if there weren't people from the gate of hell here, there should at least be corpses, right? If there weren't any corpses, then some coffins would be fine too. Even with shavings wouldn't make Mu Yu feel slightly normal, but what the F***CK was going on at the bottom of the valley? Could it be some kind of ghoul or something that ate all the corpses? Long Tongue guessed. Ghouls can't even eat coffins, right? Mu Yu searched around the empty valley, but there was still nothing out of the ordinary. He quickly flew around the entire valley. The valley of disorderly graves wasn't very long, only a few hundred miles. With Mu Yu's speed, he quickly circled around the entire valley, but he didn't even see a ghost. After the people from the nearby villages died, they would throw their corpses into the valley of disorderly graves. However, there wasn't a single corpse at the bottom of the valley of disorderly graves. Those corpses seemed to have disappeared in a thin air, leaving no trace behind. The folklore says that this is a path to reincarnation in the underworld. It can't be that mysterious, right? Mu Yu felt a chill rising from the bottom of his feet. He raised his head and looked at the sky. There were waves of yin-chi in the sky, but he could still see light shining in. Are the people from the gate of hell here to clean up the corpses? Maybe they want to live here peacefully, little Shuai guessed. If the people from the gate of hell had that kind of leisure time, the sun would rise from the west. Mu Yu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. There wasn't any special presence down there like the people from the gate of hell. Although the wind in the valley of disorderly graves was bone-chilling, it was a completely different concept from the people from the gate of hell. Could there be something living in the caves on the cliffs that we've overlooked? Long Ting looked at the frost-covered cliffs and said, "Let me search." Muyu performed a series of hand seals, and countless sonic sparrows emerged from his hand. They spread their wings and fluttered in the air, searching the cliffs of Mass Burial Valley. At the same time, he released his spirit power to check the cliffs. After an hour, he still couldn't find a single cave. This is so strange. Did the corpses really disappear from the world? Muyu felt that it was very strange. He had already checked the entire valley of disorderly graves. It was just an ordinary crack in the ground. There was nothing special about it. He wondered if there was some kind of teleportation formation that sent the corpses away. However, Muyu was the sect master of the Formation Glyph sect. If there was some kind of formation here, it was impossible for him to not notice it. Besides, if there was a formation, little Shuai would have happily shouted that he wanted to gnaw on the formation base. Little Shuai named all the formation bases Gnaw on the Base, meaning that he could gnaw on all the formation bases. The situation was so strange that it made people's hair stand on end. Maybe only the dead can enter. We're alive and kicking, and we're handsome. Even the king of hell won't open the door for us. Little Shuai tidied up the 2 tufts of hair on his forehead. Muyu couldn't find out what had happened in the Valley of Disorderly Graves. He could only come up with this plan for now. Let's go back and figure out what happened at Old Master Zhao's funeral. Then, we'll see if there are any elders in the nearby villages who need to be buried here. Why can't we do something fun? For example, go to a barbecue restaurant and eat some roast duck. Why do we have to wait for the dead? Are we that bored? Little Shuai rolled his eyes. We could start a fire and barbecue down there and wait for the dead to fall down. Dragonvine didn't mind at all. Big earthworm, why are your tastes so heavy? Shouldn't you be the one with the heavy tastes? Muyu returned to the top of the Valley of Disorderly Graves. The Valley of Disorderly Graves wasn't very deep, only a few thousand meters. When Muyu went down, he was worried that some souls would jump out from the cold wind, so he was very slow. However, when he came back up, it didn't take much time. The abnormality of the Valley of Disorderly Graves was something that Muyu didn't expect. After so many years of throwing the dead into the Valley of Disorderly Graves, the bottom of the valley was completely empty. Muyu even moved the gravel on the ground away, but he still didn't find anything related to the dead. It was as if he had entered another world. After leaving the Valley of Disorderly Graves, Muyu flew up into the sky and scanned the scene in the distance. Soon, he found a village about 30 kilometers north of the Valley of Disorderly Graves. According to Xiao Fei from the Academy, this village was called Jiangxi Village, and it was the village where Old Master Zhao lived. Since that incident, many cultivators had come here because of its reputation, but they couldn't find any clues. Therefore, this matter could only be regarded as the imagination of mortals. The village was very quiet. Simple villagers came and went, carrying plows and hoes, carrying grass and herding cows. There were also many people busy in the nearby fields. Muyu stopped a dark-skinned, middle-aged man and asked, "Uncle, may I ask where Old Master Zhao's home is?" Chapter 572. I don't know. The middle-aged man's face was filled with nervousness, and his forehead was covered in sweat. It was as if the words Zhao Patriarch were a taboo name that could not be mentioned. That's right. I remember that Zhao Patriarch lives in this village, right? Although Muyu had no sense of direction, Xiao Fei had described the village's appearance and location clearly, so he felt that he would not find the wrong place. I really don't know. I don't want to die. The middle-aged man seemed to have thought of something terrifying. He shivered and ran away, even throwing away the hoe in his hand. Hey, you didn't even take the hoe. Why are you running? It's not like I'm going to eat you. Muyu curiously shouted from behind. But the middle-aged man ran very quickly and disappeared into a small courtyard. Muyu continued to walk into the village, and after asking a few more villagers, he found that their reactions were the same as the middle-aged man's. They were scared to death and did not dare to say a word. Aren't these villagers too cowardly? Muyu, it's definitely because you're not handsome enough that they were scared away by you. Let me ask them. Xiao Shuai jumped onto Muyu's shoulder. Don't mess around. If you open your mouth, They might look at you in surprise for a long time. It's better if you don't speak. They're different from us. It's normal for them to be a little scared when encountering such strange things. Muyu glanced at the villagers passing by, hesitating whether he should take out some money to exchange for information. However, he suspected that these villagers did not understand the meaning of spirit stones, and he did not have any silver on him, so this was difficult. He walked around the village and walked to the edge of a paddy field. A short-bearded old man was sitting on the ridge of the field, sighing. "Old man, why are you sighing? Is the harvest not good?" Muyu sat down beside the old man. He planned to get close to him and get familiar with him. Otherwise, he would be scared away when he asked Zhao Patriarch. The short-bearded old man was known as Old Man Su. He had a worried frown on his face. He raised his head to look at Muyu and said, "Young man, you look unfamiliar. Where did you come from?" "I'm just passing by. I saw you sighing just now." "Why?" Muyu smiled innocently. Old Su sighed again and said, "This year's crop growth is not optimistic. I don't know where a new type of pest came from, but they can't be killed. We can only watch them destroy the crops." Muyu glanced at the rice. He found some insects that were smaller than mosquitoes lying on the rice ears. Many of the rice ears had already been eaten. "It's the withered leaf demon mosquito. This thing is really annoying. It eats everything." Little Shuai recognized the pest on the rice at a glance. "Eating everything? Isn't that you?" Long Ting laughed. "But I'm handsome." The withered leaf demon mosquito was a rank one demonic beast. It was very small in size and liked to live in groups. The best way to deal with them was to use the scent of the worm heart grass to expel them. Muyu was very good at doing this kind of thing. "Uncle, I have a way to expel these pests," Muyu said confidently. "Young man, don't make fun of this old man. We tried everything. You're so young and don't look like a farmer. How would you know these things?" Old Su shook his head. Muyu didn't say anything. With a wave of his hand, a stalk of worm heart grass appeared in his hand. He smiled and planted the worm heart grass in the field. Then, with a slight flick of his hand, the fragrance of the worm heart grass immediately spread out. Buzz! All the withered leaf demon mosquitoes suddenly flew up from the rice field in a panic. They fled in all directions to avoid the scent of the worm heart grass. In just a short moment, all the withered leaf demon mosquitoes had run away. Muyu waved his hand, and all the rice that had been gnawed on regained vitality. He clapped his hands up and down, thinking that he was really a good friend of this farmer uncle. Not only could he get rid of the pests, but he could also help the crops. Where could he find such an all-around good youth? This. Old Su's mouth was wide open in shock. "Uncle, this plant is called worm heart grass. If you plant it here, there won't be any withered leaf demon mosquitoes within a radius of 1 mile. So, please don't pull it out." Muyu kindly reminded him. "Young man, how did you know?" "Thank you, young man." Old Su was pleasantly surprised. He quickly ran down to check on the condition of his rice field. The rice field that had been gnawed on had already healed. It even grew more plump. Even the rice field that was eaten grew back. How could this be? Old Su touched the rice field in his hand in disbelief. He couldn't believe what he saw. "All right, I forgot to say. The worm heart grass is the natural enemy of these pests. It can restore the plants that were eaten by these pests." Muyu realized that he seemed to have overdone it. He quickly made up some nonsense. "Oh my God, this old man doesn't know how to thank you." The worry on Old Su's face disappeared. His frowning eyebrows also relaxed. His whole person seemed to have become younger. "Uncle, I have a question to ask. You tell me the details. Just treat it as a reward." Muyu smiled. "Don't worry, young man. If you have any questions, just ask. I will not hide it." Old Su quickly promised. "I heard that your village's old master, Zhao, came back from the dead. What happened?" Muyu asked. Old Su sucked in a breath of cold air. His face immediately turned pale. Like everyone else, he ran away. But after running 2 steps, he stopped. He hesitated for a long time. He looked around and whispered, "Young man, why are you asking this? This matter can't be said carelessly." "Why can't I say carelessly?" Muyu asked puzzledly. Even if a person came back from the dead and scared the mortals, it shouldn't be to the point that they can't even say it, right? In short, this matter can't be said. If I say it out loud, I will die suddenly. Old Su said with a pale face. The village's big mouth Wang Eryang is a good example. A few days ago, a group of immortal masters heard about this matter and came to ask about it. Wang Eryang was quick to speak, but who knew that she would die before she could say a few words. We were all cursed by old Master Zhao. If we say what happened that day, we will be taken away by him. Cursed? Muyu was getting more and more curious. Telling a ghost story could kill oneself? Then it goes without saying. Can you write it out? Muyu said helplessly. Old Su shook his head. This old man is illiterate. How can I write? Muyu carefully looked at Old Su. He found that Old Su's body seemed to be surrounded by a strange aura. His heart suddenly trembled. He suddenly grabbed Old Su's hand. Young man, what are you doing? Old Su was frightened by Muyu's action. He was just a mortal. How could he resist Muyu? He wanted to struggle, but he couldn't break free. Muyu's brows furrowed slightly. Someone has placed a vicious array on your body. Strange. Who could be so vicious? Muyu didn't look carefully at the beginning. It was only now that he realized something was wrong. Old Su's eyes flickered with a trace of imperceptible gray aura. This gray aura was very hidden. It was similar to the aura of the people from the Gate of Hell, but it wasn't the aura of the people from the Gate of Hell. It existed in the form of array patterns. Under certain conditions, this gray aura was enough to take Old Su's life. What array? This old man doesn't understand. I know that we have been cursed. Only by keeping this matter a secret can we survive. Old Su said in a panic. Uncle, have you been feeling stuffy in your chest recently? It's like a stone is pressing down on your chest. Sometimes your breathing will become very rapid. Sometimes your eyes will ache. When you look at things, you will find that you can't see other colors, only gray. Muyu asked seriously. Old Su was completely stunned. You, how did you know? I won't hide it from you. I can only see black and white when I look at you. Muyu rubbed his chin. Old Su's body had been planted with an extremely sinister array. The gray aura on his body was an array pattern. This array was called the heart-losing array. It was specially used on people. At a certain time, the array could be activated to kill people. The heart-losing array was recorded in the array pavilion of the array sect. This array was listed as a forbidden technique. Because it was too vicious, generally disciples of the sect wouldn't be casually allowed to cultivate this array. Muyu had learned many forbidden techniques. Although he hadn't actually used many of them, his judgment would definitely not be wrong. There's indeed a so-called curse on your body. Once you say something that you shouldn't say, something bad will immediately happen. Muyu released Old Su's hand. Old Su was so scared that his face turned pale. I already said that I can't say it. Young man, it's better if you don't ask about this matter. You helped me get rid of the rice pests. This old man is very grateful to you. However, this old man really can't help you with anything. Uncle, don't worry. I have a way to get rid of this curse. Muyu said solemnly. You have a way to get rid of the curse. You are an immortal master? Old Su asked in surprise. Muyu nodded. In an instant, the primal yin and yang qi swept out from his body and covered Old Su's body. Old Su cried out in alarm because the primal yin and yang qi brought him into the air. After that, black and white array runes fused into Old Man Su's body. With a slight tremor, Old Man Su felt as though some shackles on his body had been removed. The stone that was pressing down on his heart had also disappeared. This is it? Old Su slowly landed on the ground. He touched his chest and rubbed his eyes. When he found that the soreness in his eyes had disappeared, he was immediately overjoyed. He bent his body and kowtowed to express his gratitude. Muyu quickly helped him up. You can tell me the situation now. Don't worry, this time, nothing will happen. I promise. Muyu said. Old Su hesitated for a long time. Although the strange feeling that troubled him in the past few days had disappeared, he was still skeptical. After all, this kind of thing was hard to say. But when he looked at the rice he planted and touched his chest, he remembered that he was taken into the air just now. He didn't need to think to know that Mu Yu was a powerful immortal master. So, he nodded immediately. Forget it. This old man is going to throw caution to the wind. I might as well tell you. Old Zhao was a very old man in our village. After he died, according to the tradition, everyone in the village had to attend his funeral. Everyone in the village brought old Zhao's coffin to the disorderly burial valley and pushed it down. Originally, we were all planning to return. Who would have thought that old Zhao's coffin would suddenly rise from the bottom of the valley? Then, the coffin opened by itself. He actually stood up from the coffin, and we were all frightened. Everyone thought that he died with grievances because he had a group of unfilial descendants. But old Zhao's body surged with a terrifying black qi and directly killed his 3 sons and all the descendants of the Zhao family. It was too frightening. They were all gone in an instant. Mu Yu frowned. According to old Su's description, the way these people died was very similar to the way the people from the Gate of Hell did. However, there was no aura left by the people from the Gate of Hell in the disorderly burial valley. It seemed that it had nothing to do with the people from the Gate of Hell. Did old Zhao say anything else? Mu Yu continued to ask. Old Su paused and continued. After old Zhao killed his descendants, he laughed loudly. His laughter was very terrifying, like grinding teeth. Then, he said to us that he was now sealed. Old Su suddenly covered his mouth. At the same time, his eyes were wide open. He seemed to be very frightened. The veins on his face were bulging, and his whole body was straight. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.